Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is our regular meeting for the second meeting of the month, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Colleen, will you read this?
To the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have two sets of minutes to do something with tonight, March the 27th of 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That came from you? Phil did?
Barbara and Phil.
Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes as presented? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. You abstain?
I'm abstaining, yes.
Okay, so we have one abstain for the record, Colleen. The second set of minutes is April the 10th of 2025. That was our last meeting.
Those were on your table tonight, so.
The April 24th.
The April 24th, so I don't know.
So April
Probably
10th,
haven't had a chance to look at them.
so April 10th is not the correct date, Joanne?
No, it's March 27th,
And
and
April,
then April 24th.
okay, I have April 10th in your correspondence and action items.
Oh, you didn't approve those last month?
Right, because,
Okay,
because
I'm
they
sorry.
were on the table the night of the meeting.
Yes, and now you have the 24th, which confused me.
So the April 10th minutes were from our last meeting, which no one seemed to be interested in voting on them, so I moved them to this meeting. Correct.
Right.
So let's decide what we're gonna do with April 10th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and to approve, seconded. All those, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so the 24th, what, they're on the table tonight, Joanne?
Yes.
Well, nobody's gonna have time to read them unless somebody read them and wants to, online and wants to make a motion, but that'd be the only way I could do it. Anybody read them online? It feels,
I did not.
apologize for what we're talking about here. Dave, you're voting tonight.
Thank
I meant to make a note that you're voting tonight. So Dave is voting on all matters, including minutes. I hope you've been voting, thank you. So you want to postpone them to the next meeting?
Yes, please, I'd like to.
Okay,
have
we're
time
gonna
for
postpone them
resolutions.
24th to the next meeting. Okay. The other stuff we'll deal with at the end of the regular meeting, 2 and 3. First item is an old business, map 29, lot 36. Before Joanne gives the rundown on it, I would like to ask board members if I should recuse myself. I work for a company that is going to give a bid to this contractor for the site work at the site, and I would be an employee of the company. I don't own the company, but if they felt it was a recusal, I would happily recuse myself and step aside from the meeting.
Not an issue for me.
Nope, not an issue.
Anybody have an issue with me being on this? Okay, thank you. All right, so Joanne, could you tell us, I know we heard this at a prior meeting, could you give us a rundown on where we are?
Sure. We did hear this on April 10th, and the board found the plan complete with no regional impact. So they're back tonight to address the comments that were raised at the last meeting. They also need relief from the outer 50 feet of the surface water setback. So at some point you'll need to vote on that as well. And they do have one waiver, and that would be from the soil mapping standards, which requires the board's approval. We do have comments from staff, and we haven't, let's see, we have this, the applicant did meet with the sewer commission on May 13th. Tim can comment on that if there were any concerns. The departments, let's see, we do have comments from the Conservation Commission. They want to make sure that there's a stormwater management maintenance plan with inspections, which is always included. by Lynn Scott's comments. They did receive all of the variances that were required from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So they're all set with that board. And we have staff comments to approve the application with conditions.
All right, I am going to ask Dave Pierce to speak regarding the sewer department. He was just elected the new chairman of the commissioners. So Dave, do you have any comments on the meeting on 5/13 with the sewer commissioners?
There was no concern on the,
Basically, when someone comes to the sewer department, they're asking if there's capacity in the line to accept the flow from the units or the development that's proposed.
at this point, largely a technicality, yes, there's capacity in the sewer line, so the
So
project
the-
was accepted.
Joanne, the only thing that's not in the planning department, I'll look at later on, or we'll go over it later, all right? Because you make a note of the impact fees, but usually you put note in there about the sewer fees are also in your approval with conditions.
Yes, there are impact fees per unit,
Right,
and the project,
but this,
for a 12-unit project, the cost is $3,861 per unit, and they are due prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
but in the past, you have made note that the sewer accessibility fees and the amounts are in the conditions of approval in the past, so we'll address that
Okay.
condition by the end of the meeting.
They did extend the fence that, again, with the abutting neighbor, the fence went partly along the border, but not the full way, so they did extend the area to
No.
provide better screening there.
We'll let them give their report, if you don't, it's okay with everyone. Do you have a list of the items that were needed to be discussed? Or was it the whole, did we nail anything down at the last meeting, or are we
So-
just cleaning up bullet points?
Well, at the last meeting, there were concerns about the lighting. The lighting plan did not meet our specifications. They have now complied with that.
Okay,
And then they did put a note on the plan about the lights turning off at 11 p.m.
Okay.
by timer, so they don't have to worry about that.
we'll let them tell us about that as well.
They did change the parking somewhat, but they have a total of 23 spaces.
Was there anything from engineering, Scott?
No, they addressed all my comments. The last couple that were left were very basic. I think they only had two.
And board members, any board member have any questions for either of our staff that's here tonight?
Just a comment.
Bill,
I
please.
think it's a comment under the traffic impact study. Number 2 says vehicles existing side driveways. I believe that's supposed to be sensitive.
Okay. Typo?
I believe so.
What page are you on?
It's page 9 at the bottom, traffic impact study. Number 2 says vehicles existing.
Page 9?
Of our packet?
That's the next application.
That's the next application. You've gone
Oh, I'm
too
sorry.
far.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm ahead.
Well, you've warned them now, so they'll be all set.
Okay.
Okay, Phil.
And
Good that you're looking. Anybody else have any questions or comments for staff before we open the meeting to the applicant?
Yeah, it said that they removed the pea stone. Did they actually remove it or replace
Well,
it?
we'll let them tell us about it. They're gonna probably go through this whole document, one item at a time, which I'm gonna tell them to do, and, we'll go from there. Okay, folks, everybody at the table good? Okay, folks, from, Granite Engineering.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I'm Jeff Merritt. I'm an engineer with Grandin Engineering. We're the civil site engineers. Of course, you remember the applicant, Ray Melillo. Ray is contemplating the purchase of the property. We did make some changes and update the plan since we were last here. We also went to the Conservation Commission, which you know. We received favorable recommendation from them, which should be in your packet. In terms of the revisions to the plan, some were staff-related, technical revisions, and then there were a handful that this board had requested we make based on that first detailed meeting that we had with you. So those comments that the board had.
We're going to work from your document? Is that what we're going to work from?
So maybe we can get to that. I want to
Okay.
just go through the board's
Go ahead.
revisions. Those aren't in that document. That document addresses just staff's technical comments. So for the board, someone had, and this was actually one comment from Scott as well, so it's technical, but also the board had asked that the pea stone be removed there. There was some concern that it would just end up into the bioretention area. So that's been removed. We still have that swale there to act as a pretreatment to the bioretention, but we've taken away the pea stone there.
When you say remove, what are you replacing it with?
Yeah, it's just going to be a loam and seed. So edge of pavement, loam and seed to the pretreatment swale, which then enters the bioretention area.
Okay?
And then there was some discussion about, everybody knowing that the Mountain Road driveway was supposed to be the entrance. And there was some recommendations that, maybe an enter here sign would be appropriate. So we've added that on the Mountain Road entrance. There's 2 signs there to say that it's the entrance. These aren't monument signs, they're just street signs to let the people know that that's the main entrance.
Jeff, do they appear on the revised plan that we have?
They do.
Okay, good.
They appear on the site plan, yep.
Good.
And then the fencing and the landscaping, if you recall, there was some discussion relative to how we're buffering the parking lot to that east property abutter, and we had showed a fence there and landscaping there. The board had asked us to extend that further southwest so that it extended at least to the, past the lights associated with someone parking in the handicap space. So we've extended that, and we've also extended the landscaping to follow the fence line extension. So that's been done, and that's on the plan. And then lighting, there was a lot of discussion about lighting. There was a code change that had been made just before we submitted, I believe. And the new code says that you can't have light trespass over the right-of-way line by more than 0.2, and we were slightly above that, so we've reduced that. The other thing that this board specifically asked us to look at was whether or not we could, even though we were complying with the light trespass on the southeast abutter line, this board asked if we could take a look at it to dial the light trespass down to 0. So we did that. In order to do that, we had to lower the poles down to 15 feet as opposed to the 20 feet, and we had to shift them a bit. But we were able to achieve that, and that's illustrated on the lighting plan. And then the timer, again, there was a lot of discussion about the parking lot lights and it being adjacent to the abutter. We didn't think we needed them all on, and the board had the idea of putting some on a timer, at least the pole-mounted fixtures. So there's a note on the plan to have the pole-mounted fixtures on a timer so that they can turn on at dusk and then off at 11. So that's on the plan as well, and we're happy to do that. Just for clarification, the discussion too was that the building-mounted lights, the ones that are attached to the building, would be on in perpetuity, or all night long, so that there would be security lighting, but the perimeter lights would be on. So those are the comments associated with the.
So before you move on to anything else, any board members have any questions regarding the topics that we just discussed?
Can I just ask, so you said lighting will go off at 11, but the note on the lighting plan says at 9,
It does.
which seemed early.
It is.
So-
It
Okay,
is.
so that's
The-
supposed to be 11.
The discussion, I believe, was 11. And somehow it made it into the staff report correctly, and we'll have to fix it on the plan. It does say
Okay.
9, but Joanne caught it correctly on her staff report, and it's in there that it should be 11.
Okay.
Yep.
And I apologize because I wasn't at the last meeting. I just heard you say something about Pea Stone. There's still a Pea Stone apron shown on sheet 4, or labeled anyways on sheet 4, so maybe that's just a label that was left there. Is that what was being eliminated, or is that something different.
Yeah, the label's there, but the piece
Labels
stone's
there,
not
but the
there.
piece stone's gone, okay.
Yep, you're right.
So
We
we-
can take care of that, too.
We can leave
Some
that,
little stuff.
that can be administrative
Yeah,
for Joanne to
that's
handle.
nothing. Thank you.
Anybody else, Barbara?
On sheet 3, on the site plan, talking about the fence, and this just may be a drawing thing, that if you look at your current vegetation outline, you know, the little dark squiggle line, it seems to stop at one point and be very faded. Or is it your intent to cut anything down along there, or are you just putting it along the edge of what's there?
So the dark squiggly line, as you called it, is the edge of the proposed tree line. And so then the fence would go right against that.
Okay, but what about where it,
Light gray.
So the light gray to the east of that
Yeah.
is the existing tree line, and that's essentially the property line. So the fence just gonna go right, we didn't show that being removed because it's basically the property line. So the fence would be right there at the edge of that tree line.
so let me rephrase this. Is any of the vegetation that's currently existing along that property line being removed?
You can see that on sheet 2 of 7. And it's the difference between the dark squiggly line
But
and the line.
you're not answering the question. That small section, it's the lighter squiggly line. Is that vegetation staying or being removed?
The vegetation to the east of that is staying. The portion that's being removed is shown on sheet 2 of 7.
Okay, unfortunately,
I'll show.
Well-
it's because of the technical use of the term squiggle line. I'm not really sure what we're.
Well, my question for you then is, are you going to affirm to us that the vegetation is on the site and not on the neighbor's property?
Oh, so that's the inside edge of the vegetation, not the outside edge of what you're removing. I was looking at
Could you please
it-
open your plan and show
Yeah,
us on
show
your
it on-
plan
show it on the
what
plan.
vegetation is being removed? On page 2.
Right here. This vegetation right here. This is
So
where the
the dark
stormwater pond's
line.
gonna go, right?
In order to put the pond.
Yeah, correct. You put the stormwater pond there, this is the new tree line, and then the fence goes right adjacent to the tree line.
And that's the outer edge, that line is the outer edge of the
I mean,
vegetation.
whatever's on this property, if it's up and there's a canopy, it may project over the fence.
Okay.
But our intent is to cut back here so that we can build the stormwater pond, put the fence, and then we landscape between the fence and the parking lot.
Okay, now that's more clear. Thank you.
Okay, so you're landscaping between the fence and the parking lot. You're taking down the vegetation that is between the end of your fence and the end of the property line behind the detention pond. I guess I would have thought the fence would have been extended, because what I'm looking at says there's nothing between the edge of property and the abutter and the detention pond. Is that right?
Well, what we talked about, the direction that the board gave us last meeting was that they wanted us to extend the fence
Right.
to the edge of the handicap parking space, so that someone that was parking,
No, no,
because
no, I
nobody,
understand.
hang on, just let me finish. You asked the question, let me at least try to answer.
Yeah, no, I got it.
The adjacent to the handicap parking spot is an area that nobody parks. And then adjacent to that is the dumpster where nobody parks. So the next space by the dumpster to the west is the next available space that would be parked in. But that is far from the property line. So I think the board's intent was that the spaces that were closest to the property line, they wanted screened. And then by the time you get past the dumpster, that space is so far away that,
I think that's correct. I think
that's how I understand.
It was to prevent the lights coming in from people parking.
It was headlight wash on the neighbor's property.
I understood that, but I was misreading the plan when we had that discussion, and I thought that the technical squiggle line that we're talking about along that was the edge of landscape, of what is currently there as landscape and staying. So ending it at the parking made sense for the headlights, because I thought there was a buffer, a natural buffer that was remaining.
There is a small amount that's shown on L1 of L2 in your packet on the landscape plan. You can see that some of that original stuff is staying, vegetation is staying down to a point, Jeff, help me out,
Yep.
about to the word, to to the double F and buffer, is that still, that little bump showing a piece of vegetation that's staying by the double F and buffer?
Or there's,
Right, so if you turn to L1,
yep,
this is the landscape plan, so it's gonna show the existing the existing tree line to remain, the proposed tree line, and then the proposed additional plantings to be planted. So these circle areas obviously are the new plantings. This dark line is the proposed edge of tree line, and then this lighter squiggly line is the existing tree line that is on the abutter's property. So you can see we're supplementing it in that area as well. So it's not as if that area would be vacant. You're gonna have the fence, you're gonna have a row of screening trees, and then there are some landscape trees as well in that area, plus whatever the abutter has on his property.
Did you get there yet, Barbara?
yeah, that's fine.
I think you're assuming there's just more there, Barbara, is that what it was? I think there's still some on the abutting property there on the other line as well.
There are some behind the last 4 proposed trees that are to be planted as you approach the detention pond. It looks like there's still going to be some of the natural vegetation behind them as well.
Correct.
And then the fence is wedged between the 2 of them.
The fence only goes, yeah,
Yeah.
it only goes to the handicap parking spot.
Right. Are you moving on, Barbara, or are you contemplating?
That's what it is, no, I don't have.
So Jeff, while we're on the topic of landscaping, you show all these circles for all these trees. Is that the projected grow out, or is that the planted size of the tree?
I would have to ask the landscape architect, but I don't think it's the full mature size. I think it's like a 10-year look.
Yeah, and that's what we have problems with, because for the first 9 years,
Yeah.
the neighbors have headlights in their yards.
And like in this case, that's why we're putting the fence as well. We're
Okay.
not just leaving it, so it's a
It's a good solution to help with the gapping.
correct, right.
But ultimately, they will grow into each other as you're
Yep,
depicting on the
Yep.
plan?
yep.
Okay. All right. Any more questions for the engineer on this topics we've discussed so far? The Keystone entrance, fencing and landscaping, lighting, and light timers, before we move on to anything else. I'm going to ask Scott a question. Scott, this document from Granite Engineering, is this an internal document between you guys for all your comments and the answers for
This
what's
is
been
like
fixed?
an official response to the previous comments.
So if we don't have to go over all these, are you going to recommend that this document is acceptable with you?
Yes, so what happens is when I get the new set of plans and they send me this, I look at my previous list of comments and I make sure that they didn't miss any and that they were all, their response or whatever correction they made was adequate.
So I'm not going to say we're not going to discuss this. Does anybody have a particular numbered element of this they'd like to ask engineering or the applicant about? Or are we going to let engineering handle this as a administrative item?
These were all already incorporated in the plans. these
Well, they're on the
responses.
table tonight, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up. Just for the record, Mr. Raymond is not on the board anymore. That's who it's addressed to.
Oh,
It's not a big deal.
It's Mountain Hill Road. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's not Mountain Hill Road either, for that
It's
matter.
Mountain Road.
you got some typos.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I don't look at that stuff.
Well, I did because I thought I knew what plan we were talking about, and then I was like, is this another one? I don't know.
There's probably just as many typos in my comments today. So.
All right, let's talk,
It's an engineering plan, right?
let's talk about those, the permit, what are we looking for, conditional use permit, Joanne? No, the relief from the outer 50, let's talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry, can I ask one more question before?
Oh, well, go ahead.
I know. How was it that the lighting plan got adjusted to make the changes needed?
Okay. If you want to flip to 7 of 7, that's the
Yeah.
lighting plan.
Yeah.
So before, there was more than 0.2 foot candles over the Knoll Crest right-of-way line.
Right.
So to address that, the pole lights were moved towards the west and they were lowered.
The
And then-
actual poles were moved.
Yeah, just a little bit,
Okay.
yeah, like a parking
Okay.
space or so. And then to address also at the same time, to address we were compliant with the light trespass to the abutter, but the board asked us to see if we could bring it down to 0 and have nothing.
And I
So in
see
order
yours.
to do that, the pole lights were lowered. So instead of 20 foot, they're 15 foot, which.
I don't think anybody's gonna complain about lower light poles.
I don't think so either.
I think aesthetically
Yep.
they look nice.
Yep, they do look nice. So we were able to get it down to 0.
And they're probably less money, so it's okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else? So let's talk about the relief from the outer 50, Joanne?
Yes, so you should have a report from John St. John, dated 3/18, for a wetland functional assessment that has been submitted. I'm assuming the Conservation Commission also talked
Yep.
about that.
Yep, Conservation Commission had that as well. Yep. And if you remember too, we went to Conservation Commission before we had our zoning board hearing, because they needed, or we wanted them to support our request for the variance to work in the first 50 feet. So what this board has purview over is that section between the 50-foot setback and the 100-foot setback.
Scott, did you look at that report from John St. John? Did anybody look at it from staff?
I'm having a hard time
I
finding
can't see
it.
it.
Was it in the packet last week for the prior meeting?
No. It looks
Joanne?
like this. Blue.
You received it in a prior packet.
In the prior packet, and we don't have it with us.
Elastic band on my counter.
I don't have it.
You have your old packet, Tim?
I do.
Look at that, the new guy's got the document.
Hey,
So let's give it to somebody who knows how to read it.
yeah, there you go, Barbara.
What does it say?
What do you
So you want to let Scott look at it?
Yeah, pass it
Yeah,
to
all
Scott.
right.
We'll take a minute to let Scott take a quick look at it. We're just, basically, we're looking for
Gravelly-
conclusions
Gravelly
that it's not
sand at the
gonna,
bottom of it is, I bet what it says, because I've seen that.
basically, we're looking for a conclusion, right, that it does not impact the outer 50 feet of the wetlands. And what's in the outer 50, Jeff?
Pavement and buildings,
Any part of your detention pond?
no. Outer 50, so your 11 by 17s are colored, right?
Yes.
There you go. So on this colored plan, on the site plan, you can see it. So this upper green line, or this north green line, that's the 100-foot, and then the other one is the 50-foot. So that's the swath right there. And what's in it today is essentially what's going to be in it in the future. It's going to be buildings or pavement, because that's how it is today.
Just so I can get it, if I got the black and white copy and I'm on the grading plan, Jeff?
Yep.
It starts approximately at the last fence post for the security, for the privacy fence,
I would agree with that.
Go to
Yep.
And
sheet
it-
3.
and it cuts,
I think you do have the colored one if
If
you've
you
got
go
the
to
small
sheet
one.
3, it's the green line, the thicker green line.
Between the the two
okay.
green lines.
Thank you for showing me that. I don't have to ask any questions, Ron, but. Okay, so the only part of the project is parking lot that's already there and building that's already there?
Yeah,
Plus an
and the
addition.
work that we're doing to modify those areas within that 50 feet. But the uses and the land covers that we're proposing to put there are what exists there today.
And to your knowledge, based on what you know about the report, was there any conclusions drawn by the wetlands engineer that were adverse to the request for this?
No, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of habitat value because of the fact that there's no buffer out there today. So it's not like we're stripping a buffer. And then what value the stream does have stays intact, because we're not getting into the stream, we're not messing with the bottom of it and that kind of stuff. So There's no anticipated impact relative to what we're proposing. And anything, like I spoke about last meeting, right now the stormwater just dumps in there, there's no treatment. We're doing quite a bit in terms of capturing that and a good effort to.
Any board members have a question regarding the request for relief from the outer 50? We're not going to vote on it until after the public hearing, but we can discuss it now. Give you a chance to finish reading it if you want, Scott. If you
Yeah, I'm not.
feel like you'd like to wade through it or not. Can't just go to the last page and read the conclusion?
I'm trying to figure out what they said first.
All right. Okay, so does anybody have any questions regarding the outer 50 feet? I don't hear anything. How about the waiver request? Let's talk about the requested waiver. Joanne, I know you said, could you tell us what it is directly?
Yes, it's section 6L from the development regulations, and they're asking for a waiver for the ability to not provide soil mapping standards.
Anybody have any questions regarding that subject? Could you please explain why you're asking for that waiver, Jeff?
Yep, it's the same as we discussed about last meeting. The waiver request is to not provide the soil mapping. The property's already developed. The purpose of that soil mapping is to let the board know what the soils are so that you can determine that the site is capable of having being developed. In this instance, the property's been developed for 50 years, so it's trivial that we know that it can be developed, and since we're working essentially within the limits of what's already developed there, an actual soil survey would just come back showing pavement building, so there would be no benefit really, and for that reason we asked the board for a waiver.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, sounds like it's cool. Any other questions for this applicant before we open a public hearing?
So this is just the functions and values, which doesn't really have a conclusion or a recommendation, but, I mean, it basically talks about what type of wetland it is, which is just a perennial stream with specific vegetation. It's just a nearest encroachment into the buffer is the corner of the parking lot. It's approximately 11 feet from the reference line of the brook. The majority of the vegetated buffer is to remain, so from what I take from that, it's not.
Okay. All right, so if there's no more questions for the applicants, I am going to ask you
Send it
guys
back
to,
Tim so he can have his copy.
thank you, Tim. I'm going to ask you guys to vacate your chairs, and I am going to open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak regarding this application tonight? Come on up. Could just give us your name for the record, please.
My name is Hugh Smith, I'm the director butter. I'm still amazed that the town of Goffstown is going to approve 12 units to be built on something that has density for 2. And now here we are tonight, talking about the lights staying on until 11 o'clock at night instead of 9 o'clock at night. A lot of us go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. I don't know how much of an impact the 15-foot poles will be and the number of poles they've got there, but I mean, it just seems this is still a single-family residential neighborhood. If we're laying on the couch falling asleep at 9 o'clock at night, we shouldn't have lights glaring up in the air. So I'm not familiar with how far this light's going to go over the fence or whatever, but why all of a sudden are we 11 o'clock at night instead of 9 o'clock we were last month?
Okay, we'll ask her to address your comments by the engineer when you are finished with your public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak regarding this application tonight? Close public hearing. Jeff, could you come back up, please? I'd like to have you answer two questions. One is, your plan originally said 9. Who changed it to 11? The board?
My recollection was the board had said 11. Joanne's staff report mentions 11. We wrote 9.
I was gonna say, the plan still says 9.
Exactly, so
Well, let's ask the board's preference. Does the board want to enforce a 9 o'clock time limit to listen to what the neighbor has to say? Could you also talk about the light trespass onto the neighbor's property? And could you turn the page that shows the zeros on the neighbor's property so Mr. Smith could see there is no light trespass onto his property? And you could explain, you can turn it towards him so he can see it, and you can point out where the zeros are and where the ones are, which is actual minute amount of lighting.
Before that happens, I do remember us discussing both 9 and 11.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, there was a discussion about whether or not it's 9 or 11. It wasn't a dictation of which one, and I think that there was some compromise around 9. And what we talked about is that the other lights would stay on continuously on that edge. That's what I remember.
Okay.
I don't think we take exception to what time it is. Ray, or do you have any opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I just think like safety-wise, if 9 o'clock's kind of early, someone's coming home, it's dark.
The building lights, the note says the building lights
Correct.
will stay on.
Yeah, I understand
It's the-
getting out of their cars. And, I mean, I'm okay. I mean, if you guys want 9, then, 9 it is, but, I think.
It's
Okay.
not quite a rough neighborhood.
So let's,
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about more like,
Let's
it's night,
let,
it's winter, they slip,
let's let
and fall.
Jeff address the comments from the abutter regarding the light
Yep, so
trespass.
each one of these spot shots has a number to it, and it represents the foot candles which is a measurement of light on the ground relative to this lighting design. And what the ordinance says is that you can't have light trespass greater than 0.2 foot candles. And for reference, 0.2 foot candles is about the illumination you get on the ground with a full moon and no cloud cover. That's that illumination that you get. That's about 0.2. What we did is we lowered the light poles, and that allowed us to have 0 at the property line as opposed to what is allowed at 0.2.
So clearly stated, you're proposing less than what's allowed in our regulations.
That's right.
Does your model include the fence?
It doesn't, so it's ultra
That's what I
conservative.
thought.
Doesn't include landscaping, it's just very conservative as it spills over the property line.
So it's a 6-foot fence.
Yep, solid
15
fence
15-foot light pole.
with a landscape screen as well.
Yeah, that won't be above the fence for a few years.
Someday it will, but you're right, yeah.
All right, board members, would we like to address the time frame on the lights and amend that to do something different, or what's the board's pleasure?
Make a motion, we can solidify 9 o'clock for it.
Does it need to be in motion, Joanne, or is it just,
No, you can say, so you're supporting 9.
I'd support 9.
You could just agree.
I don't
I
understand.
personally think 9 is too early. Even though that you have the building lights, if you're getting out of your car, it could be, like someone said, icy or whatever, rainy, and someone could slip on something if they couldn't see, clearly. I know the side part of this building is, when I was using the handicap parking for a while, is extremely dark when you come out of a meeting. So I just think it's not safe to not have any lighting on. There's no lighting on that side of this building. There's no lighting on the building at all either, so. But the parking is up against the building where this parking is not. So I think it should go to at least 10, if not 11.
10 is a compromise at this point. Anybody else want to speak on the matter?
I think I'd be okay with compromise of 10.
Bill, do you want to agree with a compromise, or do you?
I don't have a problem with 11, but 10 is okay. I think they lowered the poles There's a fence, the trees are gonna grow up. I think they've addressed everything as far as the lighting.
David?
I'm happy with the compromise value, 10.
Barbara?
10.
Yeah.
Colleen? All
That's fine.
right, so we're gonna request that you make it 10 o'clock for the shut off at the lights. And then 10 o'clock.
The accessible parking spot, is that located there because that's the accessible entrance? Yeah,
Correct,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if maybe we move it to where the 4 is in the other area, have the bay at that entranceway. Maybe
Yeah.
the accessible spot could be where the building lights are.
Yeah, no, it has to be that location, that's the accessible
Okay.
door for the building.
Yep.
Joanne, another question the butter had was, he didn't understand how this density is allowed at the site. Could you explain why we're allowing the density at this site?
So it's not really this board that's allowing the density. They received a variance from the zoning board for the density. So, you know, it's already been approved, so the planning board typically just carries that forward.
Okay, so I hope that answers your questions, Mr. Smith. May not make you happy, but trying to at least answer your questions.
Just to clarify, I mean, you're saying we carry it forward. We have to,
Right,
like, the
right.
ZBA has made the determination
Exactly.
that this is the density that's allowed,
Right, so that's
we
what it
don't have
is.
any ability to.
No,
Yeah. Thanks.
we can't change it. And the variance runs with the land, not the application, so.
All right, so let's double back to the relief from the outer 50. Does anybody want to discuss it further or make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant relief from the outer 50 of the surface water setback based on the wetland functional assessment that was submitted and reviewed by the town engineer and the recommendations of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. Seconded by Joshua. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all's in favor of granting the relief from the outer 50-foot setback, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. The waiver requests for soil mapping standards. Does anybody have any more questions or issues to discuss about that? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I do need to bring something up that
Go
I
ahead.
completely forgot about. In my comments, I noted the possible moratorium on this road.
Yeah,
So
Which road?
we're repaving Mountain and Knollcrest this year. We're doing a shim on Knollcrest and shim and overlay, and then an overlay on Mountain. So you are showing that you need to rebuild, and I just met with Director Jacobs this week to discuss this. So you're showing to rebuild, I can't believe I almost forgot this.
You got fired if you had.
Showing to rebuild the, or you need to extend the tip down for the ADA crossing.
yeah, right,
That's
as
the-
we close the Knollcrest width.
Yeah.
That's the
exact-
one shown on Mountain Road at the intersection of Knollcrest?
Correct.
Okay.
So, we need, with our Knollcrest and Mountain project, whenever you do even an overlay project, you need to update tip downs to meet ADA conformance. So we were planning to do the one on the opposite side. So I spoke with Adam, the Director Jacobs, and we would be willing to allow, to use our contractor to do the work on this one. But we're looking for some assistance with the offsite improvements. I don't have an estimate at this point of how much the work would be, but if you're favorable, it's work you need to do with your project anyway.
How many panels do you have to go back, Scott?
Well, so they're showing.
3.
Yeah, but.
But is that a paved sidewalk or concrete?
The town does paved down to where the panels are, so it's probably less concrete than what they're showing.
So you're typically saying that it'd be asphalt down to where the truncated dome panels are?
Exactly.
That little
That'll be
triangle-shaped
that'll
parcel,
be the
that's
piece
the only concrete?
Yeah, but we need new curb out there. Because today, if you look at the,
Existing
the
conditions?
existing condition plan, you'll see it ends much earlier.
It doesn't have anything that's been listed.
Correct, it doesn't, it would need to be brought up to ADA standards. with-
Well, I would say that you're putting it on the record, the developer knows that this has to happen, and
Okay.
I would say it'd be a condition of approval that the developer agrees to have the work done prior to the moratorium, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to cut the road.
Do you know when
Well,
the
you just have to pave like 50 feet in each direction
Yeah.
if you do it.
Do you know when the project is?
It's this summer. We met with the curbing contractors yesterday.
Okay.
So it's
Like early summer, like we don't?
Yeah,
Early
yeah.
summer, okay.
So, and then you'll want to get your water line in.
So we'd have to
sooner
at the
than later.
least stub everything out, get out of the right of way,
Exactly. So
basically.
you got that 6-inch water line. You want that stubbed, and I don't believe you need to touch the sewer, right? Because it's already PVC, it's already
Right.
the SDR.
What are you doing with Knollcrest? It's already wider than it should be, and this is a slimmed down Knollcrest. How would you handle that? We told this project.
So we'll come in with our shim. I'll lay out before our paving contractor comes in about a foot off of where they're gonna cut, and then they'll be able to cut a new edge for us when they come through.
Well, as long as you work that out with them so they
Yep.
know,
Yep.
just in
Because
fairness.
that's all demolition along Millcrest for them.
Yeah, we're not gonna pull the pavement out for them. We'll pave like a foot beyond so that.
So that you
when
can
they
saw
come-
cut the edge
so
and
they
you'll
can
have a
saw.
crisp edge to go.
Exactly, yeah.
I get you. Yeah, and then there's a little, this'll have to be paved.
They'll have to pave
that in
that
after.
themselves, because I think.
But that's
they're-
handwork regardless.
Yep.
Okay, so that goes to the contractor about the water and the curving and the tip down.
And Scott, maybe it's something we can work with you guys, like, as long as the town's willing to have us stub the line ahead of actually doing the site work, we can do all that, we just probably have to work with you on coordinating that.
Yeah, the water department's a separate department from us. I don't know, have you talked to Lee before? or-
We did initially,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
but we didn't talk about just kind of stubbing it ahead of actually doing the site work.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would want, because we don't want you cutting the.
No,
the
it doesn't
road.
make sense,
Okay,
especially
yeah.
if the timing's just about perfect anyway,
Mhm.
so.
And I'm sure the contractor, if they didn't
Yeah.
want to pay you to do it, I'm sure they could get their contractor to come in and do that little tiny piece of curb and thing there, because the curb doesn't extend all the way around the
It
radius,
does
does it?
not, no, it'll be a flush piece of curb. for
Flush
the-
out there, and what happens
At the
when you go into the
truncated
radius? Nothing?
No, it'll just be,
Just pavement off onto
Pavement,
the grass?
yeah.
Okay, so,
yeah, because we need the water to shed off and get to that basin.
yep, okay, well, we'll let you guys work that out with the engineer.
Okay. Thanks.
So let's get back to the request for the soil mapping standards to be waived. Anybody have any issues with that waiver request?
So I'd make a motion to waive section 6L of the development regulations, soil mapping standards, for the reason that the property is already developed.
Can you second it?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Joanne, do we have any outstanding issues?
No, we just have the list of conditions, and I just
Okay, could you go over the
added-
list of conditions that are required on this project?
Okay, so the first one was what Scott was just speaking about, the street excavation.
Yeah.
And we'll just add that that needs to be completed prior to the moratorium.
Yep.
So we'll change that language. The impact fees are in there that I spoke of earlier.
Yep.
Pole lights shall be regulated, and I will change that to 10 p.m. Note on the plan of the final written decision with conditions, include appropriate professional stamps and signatures, provision of digital files, AutoCAD submission, all of that. Review and determination that the plan is not exempt from, let me start over. Review and determination that the plan does not exempt the applicant from the obligation to meet all applicable required codes, including but not limited to building, electrical, health, safety, fire. Review and determination that the plan does not exempt applicant from the obligation to meet all applicable required approvals and permitting, including but not limited to public, take out that number 9 there, public utilities, wetlands, shoreline, stormwater, NHDES, US EPA, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Site inspection by the town or town's representative paid for by the owner. Final inspection is required before a certificate of occupancy is issued. An escrow payment shall be made to the town prior to the pre-construction meeting. A drainage maintenance agreement is required and shall include reference to the required maintenance schedule, procedures, and recording. Provide PDF and DWG of the approved plans. A stormwater management maintenance plan. I thought I just said that. Stormwater.
And you said the maintenance
Oh,
agreement.
okay. A stormwater, thanks. A stormwater management maintenance plan with inspection shall be submitted. The inspection report shall be available to the town. The applicant shall be required to plant native plantings as part of the proposed landscaping plan, as well as where proposed plantings are within the infiltration pond. If snow storage cannot be accommodated on site, it shall be removed.
For 15, should that be a note be added to the plan that states the snow storage?
I think they already did, didn't
Is the
they?
note already on the plan?
It isn't.
Yeah.
Joe, I'd like to recommend we replace number 9 with the sewer accessibility fees will be determined by the sewer commissioner and are due prior to the issuance of any COs. Because they have credits for the existing building, they have to be determined as to how much credit they have to put against the new units, and then the accessibility fees will be figured out by the sewer commissioners. And they're due prior to any CO being issued.
Question.
Please.
Could I get the applicant to say what they understand 14 means? This comes from the Conservation Commission comments, I believe. And we haven't really talked about that, but this would appear to be something that is not actually on the plan that they were asking you to do at the meeting.
What's that?
Native plantings.
They just made a
CAD file.
generic comment about trying to use native plants where we could, and we said we would.
I mean, our regulations require that.
I understand, but what does this mean?
We need to get
We have a
16.
plan with a landscape plan,
You wanna word
and
that.
we now have this saying,
It's
I'm
probably
not
on.
thinking that the applicant gets to take away anything that they have on their plan that we've just approved. So,
They would need to add a note on the landscaping plan
Yeah,
and
so
possibly
provide
change
as-built
some of the
digital
plants.
file,
Are
CAD
we-
drawings.
Are
You're gonna make that number 16 in the proposal.
Are there plantings in particular that Conscom was wanting?
No, they
No.
always make this statement whenever they review a plan now, but they don't offer any.
well,
Just-
frankly, the applicant is telling us what they put in here. If they want to add something, they're free to do it, but I'm not sure I want to see a swap out or something if it's not on the plan.
Well, I don't think we have non-native species here. That wasn't their intent. It was basically just a statement saying that they support non-native, they support native plantings. And, we can certainly confirm with the landscape architect that they are all native species, but I don't think we have non-native species here.
Well,
That's
but
not-
here's what the language is that came in our notes from Conservation Commission. The commission recommends, and I wasn't at this meeting, the applicant be required to plant native plantings as part of the proposed landscape plan, as well as where proposed plantings are within the infiltration pond. So what does that mean to
They
you?
do show the plantings in the pond.
It means that they want native plants.
Did you change the landscape plan at all
No.
since you went there?
No.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out why
Does
we
your
even have
landscape
this.
plan
damn
have
time.
native plants
Yes.
already on
Well,
it?
Yes.
they're all pretty much native.
But they say this on every single.
It's
Well,
just
then,
a-
I want it off as a condition, because I think it's just confusing.
Phil?
Right, no, I agree, because if you read what, I don't have that in front of me, but it says where possible.
You do, it's in your packets on page 6. Lot number 14 on page 6.
No, I understand that, but she read from the minutes, didn't she?
No,
she
this
read
is
from
on
the
page
report.
5, it's the Conservation Commission report
And
says.
it's number 14 on page 6. So
But it's
just-
not
okay,
exactly
but-
the same, I think
Oh,
it needs to
that's
come
what I
out.
mean. It's not the same.
It
So-
needs to come out, we don't have a specific direction, he's got a plan, he says there's natives. Then
So are you
add-
proposing to remove number 14?
I think we should remove 14.
I concur with
Yeah,
that.
I agree.
The species proposed are native, and I appreciate the Conservation Commission's comment, but our regulation requires
It'll be
it.
number
The
14
plan
now.
shows it.
Or
If
15,
they have
right?
particular plantings that they would
15.
like to see,
gonna
then in the
replace it
future,
with
we
number
can
14.
ask them to be
You're,
specific on that. But I
it'll
think
replace
for
the one
this
we just
plan, that is not a
I,
necessary condition.
when I read this, I had visions of somebody going out there and adding little things in the infiltration plan.
No, that wasn't
Because
the
that's
intent.
what it, within the infiltration plan.
It's a pretty standard comment that we get on a lot of plans. It's, I don't think that's what they meant, but,
Only certain species can live in a biodetention
Precisely.
pond because it's
Yeah.
underwater half its life.
Right.
exactly.
Typically need to be salt.
They don't drain, they hold
They're
water
not
6 or
supposed
7 inches deep and then percolate out over time. Scott's gonna add number 14, replacement regarding a site,
Yes.
as-built.
So we forgot the as-built comment. So provide digital as-built file in CAD and PDF form to town prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. Which is a comment we typically add. I just
Isn't that number 6, but not worded quite right?
Doesn't say
No, that-
as-built. As-built is a
yeah.
word.
Number 6 should have been this one. Now that I see that, and
But we need to add as.
number 6 is when it would have been a subdivision, and we want the CAD file of the new boundary, because it's not an as-built, it's a.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
So
have
maybe
that
we,
note.
maybe we swap it with 6 then instead of 14.
Why wouldn't you just leave it alone?
Sure.
Don't they each
Okay.
say their own thing? As far as I'm concerned.
We do have a note on the plan that says an as-bilt's required to be
Okay.
issued to you guys prior to the issuance of.
Perfect.
Well, there's
Oh,
not a-
maybe that's why it's not a comment. I think
Probably.
you
I just went
probably-
ahead and added it because I saw it.
Well,
It's
let's just-
probably one of my previous
Let's
notes.
leave it as a condition of approval, and that way it'll hit it in 2 spots.
Yeah.
Since they already did it. Anything else, Joanne, for,
So I'm just a little confused. Are you leaving 6? and
as the
not-
way it is, and you're adding 14 to require a digital as-built file be submitted to the, whoever gets them, Public Works or whoever gets them.
Yeah, we take them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was a previous comment. You replied to it and said it's C note 20 on sheet 3, and that's why I didn't add it back to these comments.
You have inspection on any of this stuff, Scott?
Yep.
You got that
That's
included?
that's number 10 on this
Okay,
list
good.
that you have.
Good.
Okay, I'm good.
Thank you, Joanne. Anybody else? It's time for the big closing.
One thing,
Please, Jeff.
and I might have skipped over, but did the board vote on the waiver?
Yes, we did.
We did.
We
Okay.
voted and we approved the outer 50-foot wetland setback by unanimous vote, and we approved the request for the soil mapping standard waiver, and that was a unanimous.
Sorry, I
vote.
must have been on a different
That's
planet.
You should start
Thinking about
paying-
something else.
You should be paying attention. Okay. Board members, do we have findings of fact listed on our report, Joanne?
We do not.
No, but I can come up with. So with the findings of fact that the application is presented and with the relief and waiver granted, it complies with development regulations and complies with the variances, more importantly, that were granted by the zoning board of adjustment. The planning board will, I recommend, or I move that we approve the application with the conditions 1 through 15 as discussed and as amended during this conversation.
Okay. Anybody want to second that? Tim? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, folks.
Appreciate the board, thank you.
I wanted you to ask that given.
Take a second here to get your package shuffled around or whatever you need
If
to
the
do here.
variance is granted, I have those.
Because we have to, because of the.
Jules is coming to Goffstown.
Big coffee war down at Bernardo. Coffee wars.
You know what, this would have answered my question. I was wondering where I drove by. I'm like, oh, that's where it is, the house. I was assuming it was the Fred Fuller site, and I drove by just to.
Hey, guys in the hallway, take your conversation outside, please.
Get out. I got a question. This original plan that we got for that, can this be tossed?
Yes.
What do you do
I'm
with
gonna
this
check it.
extra stuff now?
There's a recycling bin.
Fire
over
starters.
there on your way.
Sounds good.
All
Do
right,
you have a fire pit?
I do.
manual resumed. Joanne, could you please give us a brief overview of this application? First of all, is it complete and ready for review?
Yes, so it is complete and ready for review with no regional impact, but there are 2 waiver requests. One is for drainage study and soil mapping, and the other is for Appendix C, soil mapping and stormwater management. And DPW did comment on that they have no issue with either waiver. There are very few changes being made to the site, therefore the stormwater report and site soil mapping are not necessary. This is an existing building on Mass Road adjacent to Jacques Flowers, and it was used previously by Rhymes Oil or whatever.
It was
Propane.
and it was a bank at one point.
Yes, and many years ago it was Indian Head Bank, so there is a
Boy,
drive-through.
you gotta be old to know that one.
I am old.
I only know from old site plans.
So there is a drive-through window, and they are going to take advantage of that
Wait a minute,
window.
Jeff, you're still here?
You haven't got rid of me.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I just thought he forgot to leave.
I thought you were so happy with the first approval.
He didn't hear the vote, he's like,
I'll step in on this one.
All right, so whoever's gonna make the motion, I'd appreciate it.
Joanne, is this application complete?
Yes, it is.
Is it ready
No
to be
regional
reviewed?
impact. It's ready for review with no regional impact.
Okay,
But there are 2 waivers, as I mentioned.
I'll make a motion that we accept as complete the application for map 15, lot 152, with no regional impact, and waivers are being,
Discussion purposes only.
for discussion purposes only.
Second.
I just wanted to say one more thing, that because it has a drive-through window, it requires approval by the board for a conditional use permit. That's one of the
Well,
things
that's-
that's required by zoning.
That we can talk about when we get there.
Okay.
All right, there's a motion to find this as complete, ready to review, no regional impact, 2 waivers for discussion purposes only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Joanne, could you please give us a rundown?
Yes,
Where you started.
as I said before, they're not adding on to the building. There will be no indoor seating. The building will be used for a coffee shop, and they will have the drive-through window as the way to be serviced. I think there is a walk-up as well. If someone wasn't driving, they were just walking by, they can also walk up to the window. So mainly there's the site renovations that they will be doing, which will include a new parking lot, a landscaping plan, a lighting plan. The impervious surface will be reduced somewhat by removal of the pavement. And it says here that there is a conflict, Jeff will have to explain this, there is a conflict with 2 of the referenced plans. The surveyor recommends a boundary line agreement for lines A through G shown on the plan, so you can explain that later. We have the outline of the conditional use permit criteria begins on page 8, carries over to page 9. That is, would be answered by the applicant. There was a traffic study done, and there is a report in your packet dated April of 2025. They have some recommendations by Vaness and Associates, which is formerly known as VHB, who reviewed the traffic study, and they had recommended that the driveways be widened to 24 feet in width and designed to accommodate larger vehicles such as a fire engine. The existing site drive, there should be a stop sign control, and then there should be a one-way and do not enter signs added, which they have done. The police had no comments. Manchester Waterworks had no comments since it's an existing building. The fire department's comments were addressed. DPW had a few comments, or more than a few, I guess. And we are, after you hear the plan, we're basically recommending that this be continued to June 12th so that these comments may be addressed.
Thank you. Board members?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make, so one, and more of a clarification for the public than anything. So you said, so the traffic study was prepared by Vanessa and Associates.
Yeah, I'm
And
wrong
it
on
was
that.
reviewed
Yeah.
by VHB, two separate, VHB is the town's review engineer. So there's, just in case anyone was thinking there's like a conflict of the same firm reviewing and preparing the report, so.
It is a little strange that they both have Vanessa.
Right,
Yeah.
right, what are the chances?
Not
Thanks.
such a common name, kid.
Scott, do you have any comments you'd like to relate to the board before we open it up?
I had no major comments. They were, I had a request for some back curb where they're constructing a landscaped median island. And one of the reasons for that is because we're looking to redo that sidewalk and come through possibly this year, but I don't know how likely that is with the budget the way it is. And I want that back curb there to be able to adjust the height of our sidewalk as we come through. Some additional signage.
Where's the back curb, Scott, on here?
I was looking for it here between their island and our sidewalk.
And what do you want that curb to be?
Ju-
Adjustable?
I want the curb to be there because our sidewalk needs to come up because there's barely any reveal on our sidewalk. So when we come through to redo the sidewalk, it's gonna be a curb reset.
Well, I would
That's-
hope that you would give them the grades for the curb.
We can work through that with
You're
them.
gonna have to-
We'll have 7-inch reveal. It's planned to be a mill and overlay, so it,
Plus your 2% cross slope for the
yeah,
ADA
and it'll be
compliance.
2% toward the road, so.
Right. So you're
We
gonna have
could
to,
work with the site contractor at the,
or, at least it should be a note somewhere in this plan that is, gotta be done. Okay, sorry to stop you.
So the northwestern entrance,
Which one is the northwestern entrance? The first one?
the one that's only an
Okay, thank you.
inbound entrance. So the site traffic can only circulate counterclockwise, and I want to make sure we have some type of signage or even a striping line that says, across where the crosswalk is, that tells traffic when they come in, they can't go against traffic. It's not the best place for signs, really, so maybe it is some type of
Could paint it,
painted.
an arrow, yeah.
Yeah, or I was thinking a line with do not, I don't know, something,
You come up with something, give it to them later.
yeah.
Or maybe they can come up with something that you like.
Truck turning movements, which, for the, fire truck turning movements. And then I was just curious, are you repaving the parking lot?
We haven't shown it as being repaved, it's probably in the plans in the not-too-distant future.
Okay.
But we're trying to...
Probably easier to do it now when you're not open. And the pavement's in rough shape too, that's the only reason I ask, it's because it's, benefit you to do it now
All right,
versus
well,
once
let's
you're open.
let them do the rest.
Okay.
Anything? Phil, please.
Yeah, just a question, and I'm not sure if this is for Scott or not, but it's the continuation of traffic impact study on 9, but going on to 10. It's number 5, it says, snow windows within the site triangle areas of driveway should be promptly removed when such accumulation with
It's
increased
probably
site
supposed to be windrow.
Windrows is the
Yeah.
word, they spelled it. Windrow is a.
Well, I should, because number 2 is, where exiting is existing, I should have realized that was a.
Well, that's autocorrect from the computer because it doesn't know what windrow is. They think it's window.
Well, I did, thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Anything else from anybody? We'll let the applicant do their presentation, we can ask questions later.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on.
Great. Hello again. For the record, I'm Jeff Merritt with Granite Engineering. We're the civil site engineers also for this project. With me this evening, this is Rob Hansen. Mr. Hansen is the owner and the applicant from BLRT Holdings, which is the holdings company that owns the property now. Rob owns a handful of Aroma Joes in New Hampshire. This is not his first venture. He owns a number of these facilities in the area. So what we have for the board this evening is a proposed change of use on the property. Obviously, you know the history out there. It used to be a Ryan's Propane most recently, and then a long time ago it was a bank, and there's, if you go out there and go to the backside of the building, there's actually the old drive-through canopies there, so some of that's still intact out there. This is 700 Mass Road is the address. If you've been to an Aroma Joe's, has everybody been to an Aroma Joe's? I hope so. It's different. Yeah. Yes, you have. Come on.
It's my favorite.
I know Joanne loves it.
As long as
Yes.
you don't mind waiting in line.
So I bring it up because Aroma Joe's is different than a typical, some of the typical other coffee shops, in that a lot of the Aroma Joe's don't have interior seating. They are, if you've seen some of the prototypes for them, the buildings are miniature, and it's all drive-through related, and that's it with a walk-up window. This particular building, you know, it's existing, right? So it's way bigger than is needed for an Aroma Joe, so let's just get that out of the way right now. This isn't an Aroma Joe's prototype building. This is a retrofit using what's there today, because it's a nice building, it's in good shape. So the proposal would be to just convert that to an Aroma Joe's. We are in the commercial zoning district. Joanne had mentioned that while the use is allowed in the district, it's allowed by conditional use permit. So part of this application seeks a conditional use permit for the use with a drive-through. Restaurants with drive-through are required as conditional use permit in the commercial district. In terms of site improvements, we show those on our plan. I'm going to flip to our site plan. So flip the cover, and it's an existing conditions plan of the property. We can kind of come back to that eventually here. But if you flip to sheet 3 of 8, that's our site plan, and it shows the proposal for the project. We're proposing to keep both driveways. There are 2 driveways there today. The difference with this plan is we're restricting one of those driveways to an enter only. Right now, both of them are full egress, enter and exit. So the west driveway, which is the one that's left on the plan, that would be an enter only. And then the east driveway is your full movement driveway. And the reason we've done that is a few reasons. We need both curb cuts in order to get truck circulation through the site, a fire truck for one. And the way that we configured the drive-through, it's in a counterclockwise rotation here, and so it discharges people to this east driveway, which is the logical point to exit there. The drive-through lane shown here, it will be striped on site. It's shown 10 feet wide. It has markings on the ground, both the solid line and drive-through lane markings, so everybody knows where it is. It's 165 feet long. That is enough for 8 to 9 vehicles, depending on the, whatever vehicle length is in the queue there. Of course, the town has a code which requires a certain number of queue spaces for drive-throughs. That the town's ordinance reads that you need 5. We've shown 8 here. We also have a bypass lane. You can see that if you, for some reason, were to come in here and not like the line length and wanted to go somewhere else, you could circle around the site in any direction and get out. So it's not a drive-through where you kind of get trapped in the lane. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those. That's not the case here. We have a drive-through or a bypass lane that circles the building.
Anybody have any questions on the driving portion of this diagram, well, before Jeff gets too far?
It is, on the site configuration, I guess, my concern is folks coming in the entrance only. I'm concerned about they're coming in, somebody's trying to just like get right into the line and they're not gonna circle the building. And are we creating a conflict? Are we gonna have just issues? I mean, if there's no line.
Which driveway?
So if you're coming in the one-way only drive.
You just need to go to a Chick-fil-A to see how.
Well,
that
I
works.
have the.
Yeah, it's just right now, and I get that the pavement markings are gonna show that this is the drive-through lane. You can only do so much with markings and signage. My concern is that you're gonna have a conflict where you're gonna have, some people are in the drive-through line, sitting where they're supposed to be. And you're gonna get some people coming in that entryway line, and are we gonna end up with queuing and backing? Can you have some better signage, something directing people around the building so that you don't end up with two queues, one of them, backing up into Mast Road?
And that's on the
my
one-way
concern.
only in driveway?
That's on the one-way in driveway.
And that's the one I didn't think was a problem. I thought the other driveway's the problem. The lower driveway, the two-way driveway, Jeff? See how people would come in the two-way driveway there? They might want to go directly to the entrance to the drive-up lane, like straight ahead, turn right and go into it. But if you get 2 or 3 people parked there, then they're going to be backed up out onto Mast Road,
2 or 3 people parked where?
waiting to get into the line that's already full, going around the building.
I know you
mean,
said
no,
8
hang on,
queuing
Just,
spaces.
guys, give me a second here. We'll get to the traffic study. You gotta let them get through the presentation.
The traffic study is not my concern.
But the traffic study is your concern, because the traffic study determines what the queue length is for the site. So
Well, the traffic study is prepared by a guy, and he uses a manual, and he's got a bunch of numbers, but when you go down to Pinardville, prior to the Dunkin' Donuts being reconfigured, people would pull up and they would be stuck in the lane, and this is what I think is gonna happen here. I'm asking, could that two-way driveway require people to be directed to loop the building to get into the queue, to go into the line, and not be able to make an immediate turn into the line? You can talk about it later.
I have the same concern.
But that's the first thing that comes to mind after watching the old Dunkin' Donuts operate in Pinardville for years.
Before they put it that loop in.
Before they reconfigured the Dunkin'
Because they had
Donuts.
the same issue.
So maybe
Identical.
we're not gonna design the site for them, but maybe something that could address that concern is if that drive-through lane was actually curbed and you
Well-
were entering the drive-through.
If we do,
You're hearing the
maybe just
concern,
make
it
this
definitely was an
out
issue.
exit only then.
I get it,
If that's
but-
what you want people to do.
That could be a queue,
I get it,
another.
but where do you end? Like, I mean, you're saying that 8's not enough, but 10 is, 12 is, 15 is, like, that's the whole purpose of the.
Can you tell me
the
that
traffic study.
there will never be more than 8 people in that queue line
Yeah,
waiting
but
to
we
get coffee?
can't,
I'm making my point. You make yours, I'm making mine right now. And my point is that I think the queue lane should also be considered when you have people coming in directly off of Mast Road in the two-way driveway who would
Okay.
want to turn in there to go
I
in
hear
there.
you guys, but just let me get through the presentation. Like, at
Well,
least
I'm
let me
bringing it up now.
present the information that we took the time to prepare for the board.
Of course.
There is a queue analysis in here. It was done by counting in Aroma Joe's, the Aroma Joe's that this gentleman owns. So there's actual data that shows the peak times. And then we have someone that owns a number of them that can attest to how the traffic is in the queue. Again, this is not a Dunkin's. There is no hot food really prepared here. So your queue length and your turnover time is not that of Dunkin's. And that was my opening line to you, is have you been to one? Because if you think that this operates like a Dunkin's, you haven't been to this. You've been to an Aroma Joe.
All right, point
Just
taken,
have-
Jeff. We can move on.
Well, now I'm flustered.
Don't be flustered. You were doing great marketing earlier, and then you turned into a civil
That's my
engineer, and now you're
job.
back to...
My job is to bring this stuff up and put it on the table.
All right, so where were we? Parking. Okay, so we don't have internal seats. And again, back to the Dunkin's, Don't confuse this with the Dunkin' Donuts. This is an Aroma Joe's. There is no internal seat. Even if this building's big enough to have 20 seats, it's not having internal seats. The building is way too big for the typical Aroma Joe's. The proposal here is no internal seats. So we have shown parking behind the building. There are 8 parking spaces out there. The way the code reads in town is you need a queue for the drive-through window, which we talked about, but then you also need parking if you have a pickup window. And so parking for a pickup window is 5 spaces per window. We have 1 window, and we have 8 spaces shown. And again, we have Rob here tonight. If we want to deep dive into the parking, he has a number of other facilities, all that operate with less than the parking spaces here. This is not Dunkin's. I'm just going to repeat that after every single sentence. Okay. In terms of pavement limits, there's not an expansion of pavement out here. We're working within the developed area. Areas that we don't need pavement, we have cut back, so there's actually a net reduction of pavement out here. It leads into one of our waiver requests for the stormwater waiver. In terms of a pedestrian route, there's a sidewalk on Mass Road. We are proposing to have a pedestrian route from that sidewalk to the building. Again, most of the use of this business comes through the drive-through. There's not a tremendous amount of walk-up people that come here, but the reality is there's a sidewalk there, and we have the ability to provide a crosswalk to the front, so we've done that. Landscaping, really, the site is already developed, right? And it's a situation where it's a small property. We essentially need what's out there to run kind of any business off of this property. But we've done the best we could in terms of trying to enhance the property by adding some landscape areas. One was what Scott mentioned earlier on. Right now, if you go out there, we do have 2 driveways, but you kind of got to look for them because everything's paved out there. And then there's just kind of depressed areas where the driveways are relative to the sidewalk, and that shows where the driveway is. What we're proposing is a island being cut in here in the front, so there would be a small green space. We can't plant trees there because we need sight lines and that kind of stuff, but we can do shrubs and perennials, which our landscape plan has. And then out back, we show landscaping out back where we can plant trees. So let me flip through the plan set just a little bit. This is our site plan set, our site plan. The next sheet 4 of 9, is our grading plan. There's really not a lot to focus on this because there's not a lot of physical site improvements. There's a lot of striping improvements and that kind of stuff. The physical grading improvements are really on the west side of the building, a small sidewalk and cutting in the drive-through lane. So pretty limited in terms of site work. In fact, the most of the site work is actually removing the excess pavement. And then flip one more sheet, 5 of 9. This is the landscape plan. It shows the landscaping along Mass Road. That is in that island that I just talked about, and then some trees out back where the parking is today. And then moving through the set, it is our details, which I don't think we want to talk about much, but I do want to show you the building. So the architect put together some site renderings just to give you an idea of how it all fits on the site. This first one is the building superimposed onto the site plan, and it just kind of gives you some depth to it to show you how it would be laid out. If you keep flipping, this is a rendering of the existing conditions of the building and how it looks. It's a brick building, pitched roof. That's how it looks today. The entrance is right here on the corner. And then this is the proposal for what's changing. The brick's not changing, the roof's not changing, but you have the Aroma Joe's accents being added, that blue color that they have, a building mounted sign, and then you can see the old menu here on the side of the building where the drive-through comes in. And if you keep flipping, you'll go to a series of other views, isometric views of the building. This upper one right here is kind of looking from the back angle at the building. You can see the drive-through lane and the pickup windows there on the back side, so that's all in the rear of the building. And then this lower image is looking directly at the pickup area from the rear property line, basically back to the rear, the property line to the back, looking at the building. And then just 4 more elevations, just straight-on elevations to give you a reference of what the building will look like. Again, there's not a lot of building changes, it's subtle stuff. The main structure itself isn't changing, it can just be retrofitted. So that's the global overview. We do have a few things. We have a conditional use permit for the project. The use is allowed in the district, but the use is allowed by conditional use permit, specifically because of the drive-through. The ordinance requires us to address criteria such that the board could grant a conditional use permit, and I'll go through those quickly. The first is that the use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use. If you read the ordinance and the table of principal uses in the ordinance, a drive-through service is allowed as a conditional use permit in the commercial district, so we meet that. The next one is, if completed as proposed by the applicant, the development and its proposed location will comply with all requirements of this section and with the specific conditions or standards established in the ordinance for this particular use. The proposed development complies with all the requirements in the zoning ordinance. We have requested 2 waivers, which I'll get to, with respect to the stormwater management design and a site-specific soil map. The next criteria is the use will be compatible with the neighborhood and with adjoining or abutting uses in the area. We think it will be. This is compatible with the neighborhood. It's set in a commercial neighborhood. There's a variety of commercial uses along Mass Road, including gas stations, flower shop, dance studio, school, and various other retail and restaurant establishments. So it's in a proper location for this type of use. The next criteria is that the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety. We don't believe there will be any impact. In fact, we're proposing some striping, signage, some pedestrian connectivity that enhances pedestrian safety. So we think we meet that as well. Plus, we've done a traffic impact study and which discusses the traffic volumes for the use and the safety analysis, which also supports this fact. And then the next criteria is the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. And this is a situation, again, that there's a vacant building out there. I don't know when Rhymes moved out. Do you remember it?
Shortly after COVID is what I...
Yeah, so it's been vacant for a while. I wouldn't say it's in too poor condition, but I would think that our proposal would enhance the visual aspect of that property. So we think we certainly meet that criteria. And then the final criteria is that the use will be adequately serviced by necessary public utilities and by community facilities and services of a sufficient capacity to ensure the proper operation of the use. The existing building will continue to be serviced by gas, electric, water, and sewer. No changes are proposed to the utility services, and there is actually some public transportation with the Manchester Transit Authority that is in the area. So we know we meet that criteria as well. So that's the conditional use permit. And then last but certainly not least is the 2 waivers. I can briefly go through those. Both of the waivers have a similar basis, and the basis is that the site is developed today and we're essentially working within the limits of what is really developed already. So in terms of the site-specific soil survey, that is really geared towards a new development where you're trying to prove that the proposed development and the land that you're working on is suitable for that development. It's a similar case to the last application where
you know, it's been out here for 50 some odd years, so we know that the property can support the building, it's out there. So we're asking the board for that mapping, plus the property is paved, and a mapping would just show pavement and buildings and a few areas of urban land, that's it. And then in terms of stormwater, the regulations require stormwater management design. That purpose of that design is to ensure that projects do not impact downstream abutters as a result of on-site development. In this instance, the property is already developed as buildings and parking lots, and it has been that way since the mid-70s. We're proposing to reduce the pavement on site. We're proposing to reduce the impervious coverage. And so by inspection, the peak rate of runoff will be reduced, which is very consistent with what the spirit and intent of that regulation is. And because of that, and because we're reducing the impervious coverage out there, we're seeking a waiver to not have to run that essentially trivial report. So those are the two waivers, the conditional use permit and the initial presentation, I guess, on the overall site layout. Should we talk traffic?
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
I think we should.
Nobody likes traffic.
We should, this isn't a Dunkin's, right? I just wanted to make sure.
That guy was
I
listening.
just wanted to make sure, alright,
This is not a Dunkin'.
alright.
We should have titled
I
the
was
project
looking for
that.
that comment again.
Well, listen, it's...
Well, since you said it's not a Dunkin's,
Yes.
We've already heard that, we're all over, let's move on.
what's the peak rate that you're expecting, given the fact that this is an Aroma Joe's? And I have seen quite a few cars come up to an Aroma Joe.
Peak, so let me show you. There's a really, there's a good comparison. Do you have the traffic study?
report?
Yeah.
Because this was this the
Tell us
traffic?
what page when you
No,
get that.
No, it's,
Do we need executive summary
it's
one?
this strip, it looks like
That's
It's
that one.
page 15,
Page 15?
if you're looking for the queuing.
No,
And
not
now,
you.
here's another,
So I want you to go to page 11 of the traffic report, before we get to 15. Before we get to- So this is an interesting table 3 there. It's a trip generation projection comparison. And what it does is what Mr. Chairman had mentioned, which is typically you use statistical data from ITE to estimate based on the size of the building, this is how many trips it's going to generate. There's a different way to do it, which is also based on transactional data, but you have to have actually a store or stores to measure the transactional data. Just so happens that Mr. Hanson has that, so we have actual comparison of other stores. And so what this table does is it compares an average Aroma Joe's coffee shop facility peak trip generation projections versus the ITE, and then quantifies the difference between the two. So if you look at the table there, the time period, so a weekday, an average Aroma Joe's coffee shop is 287 trips. ITE, which includes all different types of coffee shops, Dunkin's, Starbucks, and every other, major chain out there. It's a study of them all. But those have indoor seats and everything like that. They're a different beast. Those show if you use that rate, you have 1,266 trips a day. But the difference between the two is actually a 77% difference. There's a dramatic difference, I guess, between the two, which is why I bring up the
When you
fact
say
that it's-
trips, you mean number of people going?
No,
What is it?
trips are someone coming in and then going out.
vehicular activity.
Okay.
And then the same can be said for the weekday morning, Saturday daily, and then the Saturday midday, those peaks. And it compares the net difference between the two. So you can see that the Aroma Joe's is significantly less compared to a Dunkin', which is why I don't want it to be confused as a Dunkin', because we have much less vehicle traffic than a Dunkin's, anywhere from 64 to 77%. Now, for the purpose of this traffic report, the traffic engineer used the entire building as the calculation for the trips, and it's based on the square footage of the building. that is ultra conservative here because we're in a giant building and we don't need the entire size of the building. So you gotta keep in mind that even these numbers are conservative, and if you read the town consultant's review letter, the one that they reviewed this against, they acknowledge that, and acknowledge that it's a conservative analysis and that it uses the most conservative number. But that shows you the difference. And then if we keep moving through it, I want you to go over to page 12.
Before you go past 11, is there no Sunday operation here based on this?
There is Sunday operation, they're just, it's not a, Sundays are a lesser traffic day.
Okay.
So you're not worried about the peaks.
Just curious why it was omitted.
Yeah, yeah. So then you flip to page 12 and there's pass-by trips. I just want to stop at this real quickly. So that last table that showed the number of trips, right? Don't construe that to be all new trips. So some new trips, some people may say, hey, there's an Aroma Joe's in the neighborhood. I'm going to specifically go to that destination. The reality is that's not the majority of the trips. The majority of what it is people are driving by, they're like, hey, this is on my route for commuting, I'm stopping in. So there's something called pass-by trips. And what this is that the traffic that's passing by, that's already on the roads, not new to Aroma Joe's, not pulled in because of the Aroma Joe's, but the traffic that's already there, the background traffic, is pulling into the site. And so this table quantifies that. And it says, the stat indicates that the average pass-by trip percentage for this type of use, on average, is 90% during a weekday morning peak period and 84% during the typical weekday midday period. So of those trips that are coming here, 90% are already on the road. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
It makes sense, it doesn't tell you who's coming in and who's not.
Yeah, and I think the more interesting question is, how long does somebody typically stay in line?
I think Rob can probably handle that.
In most cases, about 2.5 to 3 minutes. So our goal is to get everybody to move in 2 minutes. But with, bringing new staff on and training staff, sometimes we're a little bit slower at getting some of those cars. Some of the products we have too, like our hash browns, a single order of hash browns will take about 55 seconds to cook. So we can get the drink done while that's finishing cooking. So sometimes there's a few little things like that will slow us down. But on average, we're looking at 2 to 3 minutes.
So you do have food?
Yeah, we have thaw and serve food, nothing that we cook on site, but there's food that we
You have to heat up?
Correct.
And see, that's where my concern is because if it's taking 2 minutes to get through, and you actually get a number of people, you are going to have an issue where somebody's going to end up backing up. Yes?
Jim?
Barbara, I'm sorry, just go ahead, everybody's on.
So
on
there
full
is a
tab set.
queue, to that point, there is a queue section sort of on this report, but it doesn't have the detail because ITE doesn't go into that. When you're talking about these trips, they're looking at trips, right? Not,
Yeah, the page 15 of the report is the queuing analysis. And it goes through the calculations for that. So
Right.
I'll read through it here. It says, the proposed drive-through is designed to accommodate a queue length of 165 feet without obstructing drive aisles or the site, which is approximately 8 to 9 vehicles depending on the vehicle length. And then it says to provide a measure of the queuing of Aroma Joe's drive-through window of operations. Queuing observations were conducted at an existing Aroma Joe's coffee shop located in Hooksett. The queuing were performed during the weekday morning peak, which is the big peak, 6:30 to 9, and the following was observed. Queuing peak periods, a maximum queue length of 8 vehicles with an average queue length of 4 vehicles.
So how
So,
many are you saying is going to queue on this map you showed us?
say that one more time?
What is your little diagram?
We have
show?
a length of
Queuing.
165 feet, which measures 8 to 9 vehicles, depending on the vehicle length.
So you're saying 8 or 9 vehicles can be in the queuing lane and not be on the other driveway surface?
Yeah, that doesn't include someone, like to your point, there's more room on the site, but they would be,
I understand, I'm just talking about the queuing lane before it spills into the rotational traffic around the building. you can put 8 or 9 in that queuing lane before it interferes with the rotational traffic around the building.
Yes.
Without being on the crosswalk and the pedestrian,
Yeah. Crosswalk there is not
Well,
as highly used
I mean,
as
it's,
yeah, but,
other ones.
We didn't consider it at Dunkin's.
I mean, it's,
yeah.
I know what you're saying, Colleen, like, would a car straddle it?
Yeah.
Like, probably not, but, okay, so if someone needed to cross, then maybe there's 8 in line, not 9, but, the point being that 165 feet is supposed, based on what we have counted, or what Vanessa Associates has counted, the maximum projected queue length is 8, and we can accommodate that more than easily out here, with the average one being 4. And again, that's peak times. That's not every day. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Can I share the
Yep.
picture of? So one of the things that we have taken into consideration is the queuing length. Unfortunately, for me, the queuing length hasn't been nearly as long as it was in 2020 and 2021 during COVID, right? But,
Which one do you want?
being mindful of that,
You want the same one?
I want this back, the best view I have got in there.
Yeah, probably that one.
Okay. So what we've done here in the drawing is we've created basically a Chick-fil-A door that we can open the window and take orders in the window there. But during peak times, we can also open that as a door, and staff can come out, take orders for cars, or run orders to cars and move that line faster. So when I'm talking 2 or 3 minutes, we're hoping to cut that down closer to 2 minutes, traveling either the side of 2 minutes by the utilization of this door.
So you can do pre-orders ahead of time, start getting everybody squared away.
Yep, correct. Yep. And what we're working on in some of my other stores, and we're going to do something similar here, we have a tablet too that we can use to help bust that line out. We're working on it in my Hooksett store, my South Beach Street location as well, and one over in Amherst. And we're using that to help move that line too. And we've got a pretty good system over at the South Beach Street right now that we're using on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, our busier days there, where we're going outside and double queuing some lines and moving the cars. So we've been experimenting with that this spring to figure that out. But this door should help us quite a bit, moving that line pretty quickly and getting people in and out. So the goal is to never back up beyond the 8-car queuing that we have.
Tim?
Please.
If you've ever been to Chick-fil-A in Nashville, exactly the way it works, they'll come out, they'll have a tablet, they'll put everything in, you zoom right to it.
You should go to a Chick-fil-A down south. They have 3 deep queuing lanes,
Oh, I
and
know.
they keep it
They're
moving.
completely different, they're completely different.
But I have a question.
Dave, please.
Jeff, would you, this is a vehicle movement question, explain how the dumpster truck returns back to Mass Road after picking up a dumpster?
Since he's facing the wrong way, huh?
Well, it depends if you have a front load or a rear load. But usually, it's done early morning, it's not done during peak time, so it's not necessarily the site would be operational. But the way we have it set up is you come in, rear load, and exit.
It's a rear loader or a front loader?
It could be either, if it's.
Well, what's the difference?
What's that?
There's a difference based on Dave's
If he's a
question.
front loader, how does he return to the Mass Road?
He would have.
What's his vehicle movement?
So if it is a front load, so again, first off, the trash pickup doesn't happen during peak times. And that's a fact, you don't have trash pickup.
Yeah, typically it's like 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So the site's vacant, so yes, could they buck grade and go
No,
around? the other way?
Mr. Hanson, he answered my
Yeah.
question.
It's just, it's gonna be open if they have to, but I think you'd probably get a real load out of it.
Do you have a delivery truck that brings you products and you have to have a loading zone of any kind in that site?
We do have a delivery truck that brings product in for us, yes.
And is that tractor trailer?
Yes.
And are you showing turning movements on site for a tractor trailer?
We don't have it in the plan set here, but the fire department asked us to do a big fire truck through it, so we'll provide
Well,
that.
I'm asking if you're using the templates for the K values for a tractor trailer to turn on site.
We did check it, yes.
And you're gonna,
We can show you that, yep.
because that's different than the fire engine.
Yep. Well aware.
They're different.
Yep.
All right, continue, please. You got interrupted. Or are you set with your coffee shop data for the queuing?
I'm set with it, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Do you know what the ADT is on 28 where your other store is located?
Boy, not without looking it up.
Yeah, I didn't know how it compared to Mass Road. I would assume it's probably higher.
I could get back to you.
Yeah.
We're gonna be back.
I mean, I could look it up too. I
Yeah.
was looking at it on Google Maps a minute ago, and there were 7 cars in the queue in Google Maps.
Yeah.
Did I hear
Rob, do you know if this area is higher traffic than your other?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'd have to look at
Yeah.
this thing.
Did I hear you say at the beginning of your presentation that there was not going to be walk-up, or walk-up could be considered in the future?
There is a walk-up window.
Well, let's talk about that, because you haven't mentioned that yet.
Yep. There's a walk-up window. It's actually the existing door. So
So the
DoorDash.
existing front door to the building?
Yep. So Rob, you can probably explain how that.
And does that mean you have a counter, or is that, how does that operate, sir?
I'll let Rob.
Yeah, so there'd be a counter inside for them to come in. So it's a mobile order, DoorDash or a mobile app. They could come inside through that door, grab their food and go. Or if they were, walking down the street, decide to come in, they could come inside, place their order, take their order, and head right back out.
So you're telling us the parking in the back is for your employees, or is that for the for the walk-up orders also?
Both.
Both. And how many spots are you designating for employees of your 8 spaces in the back?
Probably 3.
Probably 3.
3 is, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 is peak.
Correct.
Full operation, peakest time.
Yeah.
So you're allowing 5 spaces for people to park and walk in, pick up orders and walk out.
And this is what I mentioned before, is Rob has a number of other spaces, properties that have Aroma Joe's that operate with a similar parking count. In fact, at least 3 of them have less parking than this space.
7, 6, and 5. Yeah.
And how are you going to prevent people from parking in the drive-around? Probably not going to have someone out there, but it seems to me it would be very convenient for someone to come in and park up against the proposed curbed island to walk in rather than go to the back of the building parking. So it's going to be... I mean, you're going to show striped parking spaces? You're going to... I mean, I got to understand it.
There's no room for parking in the front with the drive aisle.
Well, they got a 24.9-foot driving lane there between the drive-up lane for the queuing and the curved face to that other's 25 feet there. That's pretty wide.
Yeah, but,
For situations like DoorDash,
I was just gonna say, if you park in the back, there's a crosswalk for you, and then there's a sidewalk to bring you to the front door.
That's so nice.
I think Barbara's been raising her hand for a little while.
Barbara, I'm
Ask
sorry, go right
questions.
So you've got the floor and
Thank you,
equipment plan sheet in your set. So you're using the current storefront vestibule to have people come in and out? So that's actually pretty accessible from the back of the building. In regards to the queue lane, it's not that far. I know you talked about striping for the queue lane. When we dealt with another coffee shop that has a drive-through, they actually, there was some discussion about actually putting physical obstructions or reminders along the drive-through, other than just striping. And I can't for the life of me remember what's there right now at the Starbucks, but there's, and some of them, they put the removable bollards or something along the edge so that if it is a peak time and you, for example, were coming in the one way, it's clear that you need to go around the building instead of through it. Do you need to do that at any of your stores or not? Yeah, because your queue time is completely different with the ordering. All right. I just have to say, I am not particularly concerned about this queuing pattern. I frequent all of the coffee shops, and we are not talking 14 different additives to coffee, along with 3 special orders for meals, which is what really creates the queue.
Yeah.
And this board, we twisted ourselves into a pretzel over the layout for the Starbucks, and whether or not what the impact was gonna be on that intersection. Have we had any complaints about that operation at all?
No.
Well,
No, but it'd be
you
nice
say
to
the
have
intersection.
Huh?
It's on a private road, it's not on the
Yeah.
town road.
When we talked about that, we were concerned about the spillover to the turning lane on 114. So I understand it's a private,
One of the concerns we had was that the queues in the
within the parking
suicide
area.
lane, with
Yeah.
interfering with the queues in the suicide lane, turning into the Dunkin'.
And it hasn't been an issue.
No, it hasn't.
And Starbucks is, those are long orders. When you get behind somebody,
They are timely.
Well, let's not compare that.
Well,
But it's
but-
not a
but-
Starbucks.
But
This is not a Starbucks.
the issue is the queue time is a function, and I think that we need to listen to the person who knows the shop as to what the queue times are, because they are relevant. It makes it a little hard, because the traffic generator reports, they're not dealing with queue times for use. They just say, this is what you should have for the use. So it is, I agree, it's a point of discussion, but I don't understand
I'm
the
actually
issue.
okay with the queue time, especially given the explanation that you could move other people along and you can actually move them through. I think you have mechanisms to bypass that.
I've just got a so I'm okay with the queue, like, and you're meeting we require 5 queuing spaces, you're exceeding that. You're meeting what you're showing you need for a maximum queue at other locations. My concern is just the general on-site circulation. You've got a lot of pavement, and we know how it's intended to function. I'm concerned about kind of some chaos on the site with people coming in multiple driveways, and I don't know how to suggest solving
I
that.
get what you're saying.
I just have a concern about how the navigation and how drivers are going to know how to maneuver around the site. Adding to that is the pedestrian access. I think once you're throwing a walkway in that's intentionally cutting through the drive-through lane, cutting through the circulation driveway, I'm in a rush to get my coffee in the morning, so I'm whipping right in there. I'm a terrible driver. If now we have pedestrians crossing that, I've just got concerns overall about the circulation for both pedestrians and vehicles, and how to make sure that this is still going to be a safe circumstance. And my other concern is just the total number of parking spaces, and I know you've got the 5 queuing spaces, you've got 5 spaces for, now we're kind of hearing there is a counter, so I know that it's not intended, it's really, there's limited folks going into the counter to order, but
It's not order there, right, Rob?
it's just a pickup, or a.
Yeah, but there would be order there.
So it'll be
if you were
staffed-
walking down the street, you could come in.
You
wouldn't
could
have
come
to
in
do
and
it.
order it, so I
But
guess,
I don't really, I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt, but we don't get very many in my other shops that walk up to the window. Everybody's in their car.
I believe it, because I'm a drive-through person myself, so I get it. I do have concerns though, because I know in the parking calculations you submitted, you said that, that a sit-down restaurant is however many, and you're providing 0 spaces for that. And I don't think this is not a sit-down restaurant, clearly, but your calculations aren't really reflecting the fact that there's a number for staff, there's a number, so I know under the zoning ordinance, there's a little bit of flexibility for sites that don't exactly meet any of our definitions. I'm open to that, and I think you've started to give us something that says, okay, this is what you have for employees in other locations. I'd want to know how many employees, how much square footage of counter area, what our counter window requires 5 spaces, so you need 5 plus your employees, plus do you need something else for that little bit of indoor area that is actually people coming and going. So I would just want to see a little bit more documentation on how many spaces you need, and if they're, can you get a couple of parallel spaces in the front where we know people are gonna pull over to the side against that curb? Is there enough area there, like Tim said, if you've got that 25-foot drive aisle, can you still meet the regulations and have a couple of parking spaces in the front that are parallel? Those are just my concerns in looking at the site overall. I think it's, great to get a use to redevelop the site and it's sitting there vacant, but I want to make sure that, especially the on-site circulation and the pedestrian access is addressed.
Would you rather we didn't have connectivity from the side? I guess we kind of looked at it differently, like, eventually someone's going to be walking there, so we ought to give them a defined path so that they're not just cutting across. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, if there's a defined
prefer
path,
that.
but then if you have some sign, if you have watch for pedestrian, like something for awareness, because people aren't always expecting that when they're in the drive-through aisle, they're gonna have pedestrians walking across.
There's some yield to pedestrian
Yeah, and-
arrows with the dot.
And I don't know what you have,
Go look at the Dunkin' down the street.
I don't know what you have for curbing, it looks like
It's
just
not a
like
Dunkin'.
Well, that one has.
We have another
barriers,
coffee
doesn't
shop
it,
in
between-
town.
Right.
It's not an Aroma Joe's.
Get
It has a very similar situation where you walk through.
Which
Check it out.
I voted
There's
against
no
at that meeting,
signage.
by the way. I thought it was unsafe.
Colleen,
know if you
I
have-
will look at that.
I don't know if you have curbing as well around, like
And
where you're
look at
coming
that
up
other place
order-
that's not in a room, Joe.
That order window,
There is
If it's-
curbing here, and then there's no curbing here, but
Yeah.
there's white pavement, and then there is actually it's almost like a concrete extended curb. It's the old drive-through projection. You have to look at it in a photo.
Right.
But there is a curb on the backside of the building. So
Okay.
the only spot that there isn't is right here, and that, of course, has some extra space there. But I get what you're saying on this. Let us think about it and see what we can come up with. One of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons Rob is here tonight, right? He's the applicant, but it's different. This isn't someone that's starting Joe's. Like, you got to realize that nobody in his position makes this investment with knowledge that it's going to fail based on the layout. Like, it's just it's not going to happen.
I don't think they make the investment based upon the knowledge that it's going to fail
So-
on how it goes. They're making an investment based upon how many people are going to go there. So there's some assessment on that.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the peak time, how many people are going through, how long does it actually take them? Because if you're saying it's never going to back up, that's a different story.
All right.
Tim, can I just ask Scott something? You had mentioned earlier, there was a question about the other locations and how busy the roadway is.
Yeah.
Is that what you asked? Was there a specific location or?
The one in Hooksett, because I think that's a busier road, so I was
Because
just
Hooksett
curious what
Road
type of
is
traffic.
I thought that's what you said,
Yeah.
because Hooksett Road has so much more traffic than Mass Road
Except the entrance to
does.
his
It's no
facility on Hooksett
comparison.
Road is on a side
Yeah, it's on the
access
side.
road, and then it loops into his property. It's not directly off of Route 3.
Right,
No one's ever going to queue
No, it
into Route
sits
3.
up higher.
And nowhere does-
However, the stacking wouldn't be an issue, it would just be, as far as the traffic going by, would definitely be much higher.
Which is the main driver of who goes in.
Which is the driveway to the site is there.
It just would be less likelihood that you would have back up onto that main road if everybody was forced to go into that one entry and have to loop back around into the drive.
Yeah, if you make that the in and the other one just an out.
That's all it would do. It would
You're
add
saying
buffer.
everybody enters here,
Yeah.
No,
certain comes
Yes.
around.
so that you'd have like a.
Because then you have more buffer.
The problem with that is then you have a conflict of the people coming around to get into the back of the
Right.
queue, blocking the people in the front of the queue from being able to get out.
I agree with
So
that.
then you're
put
then
a
you're
stop
at
sign.
risk.
That's how you deal with Chick-fil-A.
So-
You could extend it a little bit by doing that, because, the queue would have to end here, otherwise you would, and
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
you could put a do not block there.
You'd
or
block
something
them.
like that.
Who pays attention to those?
Nobody
though?
reads those
I
signs.
do.
Yeah.
You do. You're an engineer.
There's like 5 of us.
Yeah.
The only
Obviously,
thing
Colleen doesn't.
the only thing I'm asking you for, Jeff, is where the two-way entrance is, where the people enter there, where the arrow comes in, I'd like some signage, if you consider it, to make them turn right and loop around the building to enter the queuing line, and not be able to turn directly into the queuing line. Because I think that if there's more than 8 in there, and they're lined up around the end of the building, waiting their turn to enter that, then someone's gonna try to cut in, that's when you're gonna have people blocking the road.
Yeah, I get you. It would be difficult, I think, to sign this such that someone would see the entrance to the drive-through here
Correct.
and then do all this. It would be probably easier to make people come in here
Correct.
and do that if that was.
That's what I was
had to
saying.
happen.
That would be the only way you'd be able to get them to naturally flow through that. Otherwise, you can't, a sign's not gonna get anybody to do that.
It would be all counter rotation on the whole site.
Yeah.
Let me talk with Rob about it offline.
Think about it as a change.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
My biggest concern though is that when this queue comes down to.
But then you're gonna
here,
have
this
cross
guy
traffic,
can't
so
get
it's something
out,
you
so
need to
then
think
just
about.
pre-blocks it.
So, you know,
Scott, did VHB have any concerns about, like, I mean, I don't know that this site would be any different from anything else, but anecdotally, everybody like trying to turn left out of the site back onto Mast Road, are we, I guess I didn't look
No,
at this to see
the-
what the trip distribution would be leaving the site, or if there's any
No,
concern
it's
on
pretty
that.
balanced. If anything, I remember there's like a 10% difference maybe
Okay.
for the morning. So, and I think it kind of flip-flops from AM to PM in terms of that 10%, which would make the most, you know, it kind of makes sense, you know, people going home. They didn't bring up any concerns, to be
Okay.
honest.
And I haven't been over in Pinardville during Bartlett drop-off in a while.
So
Is that
I
queuing
checked,
still,
the
or
queuing
is
goes
that-
the other way.
the
So
Bartlett
yeah,
stuff
the
goes the other
queuing
way?
goes like
Okay.
towards Pizza Market.
Okay.
Because when I got this, and I kind of thought about that, because we didn't even mention that to you at the traffic, the traffic
Pick up
scoping
at the
meeting.
elementary
So the elementary school
Yeah, the
pickup
drop-off.
people, they queue up in the suicide lane to get in. So then they start at like 2 in the afternoon, and school doesn't get out till 3.
that's a police issue, you gotta send a cop down.
I think that might be the calculations on passerbys that you're gonna get in the
They
morning.
queue up.
Let's,
I'm going out there with my tablet.
let's move this along, we have another application to handle here tonight. So what else is, we need to let these guys go with for information, so when they come back, they're prepared for, hopefully for a final approval. Anybody have anything?
I do.
Discussion on the queuing?
I just want to talk about the queuing. I was down that way about less than a year ago with Adam, and they had fixed up something now where they actually pull in to this side road next to the school.
Yeah, aren't
and
they putting
go
no parking
through,
signs
and they
there
go
now
in the
though?
back. So you may want to check with the principal at that school as to how they're queuing it now. It may be entirely different.
All right. Anybody got anything else?
No.
So let's give these guys some direction and let's move on to the next application. Anybody got, do you have questions you need answered, Jeff? Or you think you're pretty clear on what you need to come back with?
I'm good.
You good?
Yep, we appreciate the comments. We'll,
Does anybody see any glaring problems with the plan that they'd like to point out right now? I don't think anybody has any glaring problems with the plan. Okay?
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I like the marketing. You keep doing it.
I'm in a room with Joe's.
Yeah, I see that.
That's what coming to town is touch points.
What was that?
Touch points. Out west, coming this way.
We'll put a whole bunch of Buc-ee's in, they'll call it a day.
Buc-ee's, how we're talking. My wife went there, got me a coffee mug, and that's
Oh, you haven't been to
I've
one?
never been to
Oh,
one.
it's an
My wife-
experience you have to go.
My wife went to Texas, she was like, I couldn't come back without something.
Huge.
All right, folks, moving. Joanne, is this application complete, ready to review, no regional impact?
Yes, it
Does
is.
it have any waivers?
Let's see. It has one waiver, maybe, for landscaping. I think they would like to speak with the board about that, whether it's needed or not.
How many waivers?
Possibly one for landscaping.
I'm gonna add it as a waiver for now. Barbara?
I'd like to
Please.
make a motion that the application is complete, there's no regional impact, and move for consideration and acceptance, with the exception of waiver for acceptance purposes only.
Thank you, and Colleen, will you second it?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Joanne, I know this applicant has been before the board before for a prior approval. If you find anything that's germane with that, otherwise just give us a rundown on the present application.
So they did come in, I think it was 2023, and subdivided the property into 2 lots. The front lot is where they live, that's where the home is, and the back lot, which abuts Route 114, is where they would like to put their tree service business. They have cleared some of the land and started prepping for what they would like to do. But basically, it would be a contractor's yard. They would be, I don't think I'm not even positive if they're doing any cutting or anything like that back there. I didn't think so.
Well, it already is a contractor's yard. That's where he's been parking his truck since he got his approval.
Correct.
So this is not an application for a contractor's yard.
No.
This is an application to build a building on a contractor's yard.
Correct. And
Okay.
so the building would be 4,320 square feet. It would be located in basically in the northeast section of the yard itself. There would be a detention basin built near the building, not too far from the building. And then the remainder of the property would be for staging the raw timber and parking. They've
Okay.
provided 22 parking spaces. The driveway that goes into the site, there's a small piece that goes onto the property with the house, so they provided an easement for that piece there. I don't know what else to say about it, other than I do have a few concerns with the site from 114,
Sight line, you mean?
the sight line, not the sight line, but the site itself, having that large building there, being able to possibly see it from 114. There is a tree line, and I just wanted to make sure that that tree line will remain, and it won't get cut down at some point in time. And if the applicant could speak more about the building, the color of the building, and whether it will, kind of blend into the area or stick out like a sore thumb.
There's a parcel between this and 114, so they don't have
Yes.
control over
Yeah,
the
it-
tree line.
Well,
Yeah.
the trees that are on their site, they show the tree line basically somewhere on their
Well,
site,
we'll-
but the property owner behind them is St. Anselm College,
We'll let them.
as well as to the
What
north.
zone is this, Joanne?
This is commercial.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for staff? Would you like to hold your comments till later, Scott, or do you have anything you'd like to start with?
I'll get this.
Okay, thank you. Board members have any questions? Okay, guys, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Earl Sanford of Sanford Surveying and Engineering. With me is Mike Giuliano, the owner. And you've already got a pretty good introduction. As has been mentioned, we were here 2 years ago subdividing and prep for dividing the commercial aspect of his business from the residential, which even though it's in commercial, I guess you got the variances or whatever for that.
Can I hold you up 1 second, Earl, please? Are you here as an abutter, sir?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to have him turn that so you can see the plan when he's talking
I
about?
saw it earlier on.
So you're okay?
I've been in contact with Mike.
Okay, so, sorry. I just want to make sure the abutter could see the plan for discussion.
We like to accommodate. So, and one of the issues that came up was sight lines from 114. And actually, this is a remainder of one here for the, this goes over where the proposed building would be. The roof line, the new roof line, that's 30.5 feet to the peak, which is 30 feet lower than the existing roof line for the historic building. The barn. The barn, if everyone's familiar. that was a key element when we discussed this whole project before, is that's got historic value, and we're certainly didn't want, originally we had the building here, and we shifted off to the corner, helped give a better view shed for the majority of the traffic they'll be seeing, and again, being 30 feet higher in the roof line, I think we've kind of achieved that ability to make this a minor addition to the property and let this still remain as the major view or whatever. So that's, yeah, and then in terms of, and I did get the comments, the 30 comments. It scared me at first, but I went through and I've shown where some of those comments have an effect here, and I've actually made half the changes already, but I only got them yesterday, so we'll discuss your comments later. But we may need one more waiver, and I'll need some assistance on that, because we got right now the road comes in on a nice sweep, and we're protecting some very large trees that are along the edge. So that's part of the reason we did the easement, so it could cut the corner. But then it was brought to our attention that road is driveway is within 10 feet of his other property. So I'm hoping we can add that as a waiver rather than moving and cutting some large trees to the right. I'll be looking for some comments from the board on that. That area in yellow represents the part of the driveway that's closer than 10 feet to the property line. Of course, it's hard because you think it's his property on both sides, but we recognize it won't always be that way.
I think it's okay when it's close to the easement. It's where it approaches the easement, and it's such a silly thing, but it's a regulation, so I got to call it out.
Right, but I think it can be handled with a waiver, right? If it's reasonable to.
There's other ways to handle it too, Earl.
Okay. Well, again,
and we dealt with it on an application a couple meetings ago.
But for the most part, everywhere else, we're holding that 10-foot offset. There is a square here you can ignore. That was a temporary Quonset hut that he put up for shelter, and now it's taken down and removed.
And the other driveway that was part of the original plan, it came up on the, I guess, the southern side of your house. You removed that, that's gone, that's loamed and seeded?
Yep.
Because that was one of your conditions of approval.
Yeah, we put big boulders there too, so you
Okay,
can't.
so you only have this one access to the back now?
Yes,
That's
sir.
correct. You can see a little bit of the residual in the contours.
That's fine.
But yeah, that's closed off. And then in terms of being environmentally what it should be, we've got a treatment swale that meets AOT standards for all the, he's not planning on paving, but I guess we have to treat it like it is paved.
Yeah,
Gravel's impermeable.
Right.
According to DES and
yeah,
everybody.
HydroCAD gives you a little break, but that's not allowed even with DES. So we modeled it. One of the comments was that I had modeled some of it as, I hadn't modeled, I modeled it in its condition when we surveyed it, and the comment was made, look, we need to have a look back.
Yeah, so
which
when
we've
Bob
done.
first came to us at TRC, I believe I noted that to him, that we, all of that before you started was vegetated, so
Right.
I think the pre and post needs to look at when it was
Exactly,
vegetated.
and I've already done that. I went back, it had a slight increase in the 2-year storm, but I hadn't modeled the perimeter stone trench that went around. I modeled that, and it took out the 400ths of a CFS. That was an increase. So, again, some of those things scared me at first, is this going to blow this project up, but nothing has from those comments. And also, it mentioned about getting access. It's fairly flat already, but we will do some extra grading to make sure.
Yeah, it's one of the regulations, and that way there, especially on a site like this where it's gravel, there could be a lot of sediment that ends up in there, and if they ever need to get it back on in there.
Yeah, so
Them, not us.
no resistance to that.
That's it.
He said that, he said them.
Right, I'm just making sure.
We don't have a back on.
We generally don't talk about that, having a VAC on
And another issue that we, this triangle, this parcel, even on the tax maps, that's still shown as going with this property.
Oh, it is?
And St. A's was sold to the edge of the railroad. And then, but before that, this was sold to the stone wall. And I think people thought the stone wall and the edge of the railroad was the same. So you have what's called a gore that nobody's paying, well, he's paying taxes on it, has been, but recently.
Basically nobody, because.
After we did the subdivision.
my money coming out of my
After we did the subdivision, they changed, I put it in as a gore, but now graphically it's shown as his.
The stone wall then you're representing as the property line?
Uh,
That's directly behind?
I'm representing it as that's what the deed calls for. I still think there's a valid ownership issue for him paying taxes on it for someone who sold that left this gore. But that's a quiet title action.
So you're showing us the worst case scenario
Exactly,
property line?
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I think, again, he has the best.
That's another subject for another board.
So.
St. A's has some deep pockets to fight against that.
Well.
Let's move on.
Yes, so, and then, so for treatment, most all of this is draining into the treatment swale. The roof water, I'm collecting it. I didn't size those pipes, that's another thing. I was considering if it's just roof pipes along with the infiltration trench that's just collecting everything around the edge, that we'd be able to use 8-inch PVC. I know there's a 12-inch minute.
Yeah,
but
so the 12 would be for your catch basin run that's up there.
Right.
If the section in the back is just for the.
And it may even 6-inch may even handle it, I
Yeah.
don't know, but that's, in your comment is actually, the 8-inch was a leftover that should have been changed. The HydroCAD did use, it was all modeled with 12-inch.
Okay.
So there was no change to the calculations, just the type, the legs needed to be updated to the 12. And we started at 8, trying to keep it minimal, but everything is 12.
So the water's pitching to the back of the building and to the front over the overhead doors, that's the way the gables are? The roof lines are?
Yes.
Water comes to the front of the building and the back of the building?
Correct.
So on the front of the building, you're collecting it in gutters, obviously?
Yes.
And then piping it into the system?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so actually in the front of it, roof, we'll pipe it into the catch basins. And then on the back, we had those pipes that weren't labeled yet, because.
I see you got it on the plan, yeah.
Yeah. What else? Surcharging, I want to make, I hate to go bigger than 12, I'm surcharging by less than 2 inches from the top of the pipe. There's still like 3 feet in a 50-year storm before it would get to, but I don't know, is that a policy that's rock solid, or is that something I can get away with?
The way it's written just says check for surcharging on the 50-year storm. So we typically require people to not have the pipe surcharging on 50.
It's so minimal that I'm hoping, and again, if this, well, I mean, the gravel does have some permeability, even though we're not giving it any allowance.
What if your last pipe in the run's at 15, would that help you?
Oh,
I mean, I don't think these, they've been here for a while, they don't want to listen to
yeah,
it.
okay. Figure this out. All right. Anyway, but none of these are deal breakers at all. So I guess we would kind of cut to the, we're trying to keep trees, we're keeping this as, for treatment, we've got the treatment swale, and then it's actually an existing borrow pit that is being expanded to be the detention basin. And then here we're maintaining the trees, and because I could have tried to do a swale to bring the water over, but because I have 75 feet of natural vegetated land, that's allowable as a vegetated filter strip. So we're maintaining this section, which does double duty. It provides the screening as well as filtration for the water that sheets off from the part of the yard that's on this end of the site.
So that's, what do you got right there? Is that an infiltration trench that runs the whole?
Oh,
length of
yes,
it?
and yeah, this is an infiltration trench.
For surface water that's coming down to the site?
Correct.
Okay.
It's probably acting as an under drain for you too, right?
Yeah,
For
because
that hill.
that hill, that just.
Is that existing or is that proposed?
That's existing.
Yeah.
And we can, the comment of making sure it's not clogged up,
yeah.
we'll refresh it as
How
needed.
much is existing, Earl? Show us with your pen,
whole
how much of it
thing.
The
exists?
whole thing.
Yeah.
How about the lead down to the detention area?
That isn't exposed at the surface, but it has crushed stone around it to bring it down and release it.
And where's that being released?
Right in, well, in this case, right where about where the orange is where,
So it's not going into your system, it's external from your system?
correct, because it's, right, it's not collecting,
It's collected from,
it's correct, yeah, it's coming from above.
Clean water.
The driveway, all the, what are we calling it, the contractor's yard, that, all of this contractor's yard is going into the treatment swale in the pond. All of this contractor's yard is sheeting down and going through the vegetated filter strip before it hits the,
Which is what it's doing
Well,
now.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
What are you doing for inside the building? Are there drains inside the building?
No, no drains, it's very simple. We do have a septic design, but it's a rectangle with a teeny bathroom in the back right corner. Other than that, it's clear and open.
So you aren't doing floor drains?
Not at the moment, no.
Do you do any truck washing or degreasing on the site?
Negative.
You must wash your trucks,
I haven't, no.
okay? Because we'd like to see something where you would wash your trucks onto something that's controlled, that the water could be filtered through, or rather than just,
Put something in the building.
no.
I mean,
We do hoods in the catch basins. Can we do oil hoods in the? And that way, there, if there's like a hydraulic leak or something too, you can put in the absorbent material so it doesn't end up downstream.
We're just trying to cover the bases, because I know contractors generally power wash their equipment occasionally, and when grease and oil comes off of the engine bay, engine or transmission or rear ends, whatever, if it lands on the ground, it's going somewhere.
Right. I completely understand.
So if,
Yeah.
sometimes a wash pad, external concrete pad that had a drain in it, where you could collect sediment and degrease and clean it out, where you would at least control it.
Understood.
So I know you're not showing it on the plan, but that's the kind of thing I'm asking about.
Yeah, so I asked for that catch basin detail. You would just add the hood to that one.
Yes.
And it would probably just need to be the two
It's a
up by
it's
the.
sort of like the diaper you put in
That would be
your boat
exterior,
to
right?
collect
That would
all
be
the.
exterior.
Yeah, it's in
not
the
inside
catch
building.
basin on the outside. Basically, oil floats on water, so this makes it so that the water that goes out the pipe actually has to go, the water has to
Under the-
go up and out.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Could do
so the
something.
oil stays on top, and you can, if you have the spill, you throw these very absorbent things down, and
Yeah.
so. And it would just need to be, I think, just the two basins at the corner of the building. The one that's like down by the retaining wall, I think, is probably far enough away from where the issues would be.
It depends which way the pitch is, Scott. Where's the water going?
It's going to here.
All going down this way?
Yeah.
Or is it going to this, what is this one?
I actually asked what that is. I think it's just a.
What is that round structure?
I call them either plunge pools, their detail is on,
There is a detail? Okay.
yeah, page 5, I think, maybe 4. Yeah, I should have labeled them PP, I'll label them upper right-hand corner of
okay.
sheet 4.
Sheet 4?
Yeah,
So that's a riprap plunge
kind of a
pool.
standard thing I've done.
And then you've got a head wall with the invert in, so it's taking the ditch line.
I'm asking about the one on the right side of the building, up against the property line, off the,
Right side of the building.
looking at the front of the building to the right of it, next to the septic
Oh, right
system.
here?
What is that?
Yes, that's a plunge pool.
That's a plunge pool.
Or silt basin, or, you know, there's different names
And
for
what's
it.
going into that plunge pool?
The water that's coming, half the there's a bit of a crown on the driveway coming in.
Okay,
So you're getting some of that drainage sheeting off to the right, going in a swale with some stone check dams, and then going into the plunge pool for sediment dropout before it goes into the head wall and into the system.
so then it's piped across the front of the building, is that what that piping is showing?
Correct.
Across the front of the
Yeah.
building, then it finds its way over and dumps directly
Into the treatment swale.
into the treatment swell.
And then that's designed 5 foot wide, and yeah, it's 5 foot wide, plus a foot and a half at 3 to 1 side slopes, so I've added that data as requested. The top is 4.5, 9 plus 5, 14 foot top width and 5 foot bottom width.
And are those the leader drains tied into it too from the two corners of the building, Earl?
No, because you don't need to treat the roof water.
Well, what are those pipes that are extending to the corner of the building then?
Are you talking on the back side?
On the front, right?
Oh, on the front?
Looks like a concrete apron and then it...
Oh, yeah.
There's a line that goes back to the building.
Yeah, those are all tying into the treatment swale. They're all, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. So you've got a run here. It starts at the plunge pool.
And it goes backwards towards the front corner of the building.
It goes forward, well, down slopes, flows across the front,
Yeah.
flows to another catch basin, comes down to another head wall and releases into a plunge pool there. And then from there it goes into the treatment swale. Treatment swale dumps into the...
Those are catch basins.
Those are catch basins?
Yeah.
And what's the pipe from the catch basin to the corner of the building?
That's his.
That's what I'm saying. The front half of the roof I'm putting into those catch basins.
Yeah, so the.
It's only the back half. It's only the back half that's going down.
Gotcha.
I'm putting it into the pond, but it's...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're good. Anybody have any questions regarding the drainage that Earl has been describing? Besides me? Phil?
How deep is that plunge pool?
Well, in the detail, typically I make them 1 foot deep.
Okay, I didn't see it, that's what I was asking.
21 inch from the rim down to the bottom, and then 9 inches back. That's too late for me to do math, so I...
Oh, okay, I see it, I see it up here in the top right.
Yeah, it does say 12 inches in the...
Yeah, okay.
So it gets the pool up pretty good, and I found them pretty effective on the site plans that I've been working on for the last 10, 15 years.
Anybody else?
Can I ask a non-drainage?
Go right ahead.
I mean, drainage is so much fun, but,
It's a pretty big deal on this lot.
it is. Just on the parking, and you're obviously exceeding, I think you're showing 22 parking spaces. That's more than enough for your staff,
Oh, yeah.
employees coming and showing up. And Joanne, I know the zoning ordinance, being that this is gravel, we're not expecting them to stripe it. Under the ordinance, normally it would be striped or signed or something. I know the note of the plan says the owner will coordinate that. Do you have any concerns?
Usually when there's gravel and it can't be marked, they have to put those cement curb.
Like a curb stop?
Yeah, curb stops.
Okay.
Well, again,
Can I use a log?
Well, the ordinance just says
yeah,
demarcation,
Yeah,
so
so
I'm
logs are fine.
fine with that, given, because I know you've got equipment, and I don't think you have 22 employees parking out
Right.
there,
And I don't
but
think anybody's gonna park in one of them parking spaces. They just have to prove that they're there.
yeah, so if I make two points. One is that this is non-public. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got no trespassing signs, and
Yeah, cameras everywhere.
I look over if I sneak over there to check the site, I'm waiting for get arrested. The other fact is where it really does count is the handicap space, and that's on a concrete. We've done
Okay.
concrete to maintain a good control on the slopes and be able to do a wheelchair without fighting gravel, so.
okay.
Is it like a Dunkin' Donuts?
I was just gonna ask about a queue line.
Where's the drive?
There's two on either end, 114 and Mass Road. That's my favorite.
So Earl, I'm noticing your well location in the middle of the column in front of the garage. Is that the only spot you could sneak it in and meet all your setbacks? It's not, it doesn't concern us, it's just, it's not.
I feel like we could move it back a little bit depending on where that swale ends up.
Don't move it after your septic's been approved, because then you'll have to find an amended plan. So if that's where it shows, then leave it.
Well,
You are allowed to have the
Below, right?
I put it
the
right
well
through the
radius
middle
leave
of
the
your
property line. now, right?
garage, where it could, with
No.
ballers around it.
No, the wellhead.
That's what I'm talking about.
Where you're gonna drill your well is right in front of the garage doors.
Where?
Were you driving in?
You guys work that out at home later.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about it, because it's
Probably not a good place for it.
well, it's safe.
It's between the doors.
Anybody have anything else they want to ask about?
Joanne, didn't they change their rule that you could have the well radius go off the property?
Oh, yeah, that's a
Yes,
move,
they
you can go
did.
right off the
They
property
Just
on the
have
other
So you
to
lot.
can-
file some paperwork with the state.
Oh, you do have to still? Okay.
It's not the same as it was before.
Yeah, you need like an easement or
Yeah,
something.
So one question was raised by,
Waiver, that's what it is.
I think by Joanne about your raw timber material staging area. You're not planning to saw or do anything, you're not gonna run a sawmill down there?
No.
Just, that's where you store your logs until you can market them and sell them,
Yes, sir.
which is what you told us the last time.
Yes, sir.
Any chipping,
Negative. Not on site.
you do that on
We do that
layer.
on homeowners' property.
Yeah.
Free tree removal for the board, if you need it.
There's no.
One tree per.
I'm just saying.
No, you can't say that.
Joanne, one of you had a potential waiver for landscaping. Is a waiver required, or were you wanting us to give feedback on whether or not we thought a waiver needed to be requested?
So that's the only information that I have at this point. I think they wanted to use the existing
Tree buffer.
that's there.
Okay.
I read somewhere in here about, they hadn't made a decision yet, so they're coming back again, so
Okay.
by that time, I'm sure they'll
I
have
don't know if
something.
it's needed or not.
Tell us
I would
about,
like to get, I mean,
Well,
it
he
is
needs
no-
a field for it.
I'm hoping to get some
Feedback?
some answers, so next time we do whatever you want to see. Whatever's approvable, we'd like to determine tonight, if possible.
I see you have fuel and diesel bunkers set up on site. They're gonna be, those are all regulated by DES, not us. So I'm hoping that you'll have some statement for the record about what you're gonna do with those, since you're showing them on the plan. Whether they're in double-walled containment systems, whatever your plans are.
You
But
wanna see what they're made of? Is that what you're
we'd like to know,
That they meet.
we need to know that he meet all the DES requirements for fuel and gasoline storage on site. Because otherwise, if we approve a plan and don't ask for the information, then we're negligent. We didn't ask. So we're gonna need some information on both of them. What they're gonna be in, what the systems are, how they are protected, and then how DES views their system you're installing.
You're right, we put them in a bunker, I've done it before, but we'll get more data on that.
Anybody else? I have a little, something to ask the board to decide on, or at least advise on, regarding that easement. On a plan we just looked at where the corner of the property touched the wetlands directly, and there was no area for people to walk by, we had them cut the corner of the lot off with an adjusted property line.
I would be a few meetings ago.
So I'm going to suggest, Earl, that the board might consider, if you look at sheet 3 of 7, you have a dash dot line that connects the two property lines. See the one I'm talking about?
No, not yet.
Well, it's on my
It's the
print.
easement line.
It's the edge of what you want to call your easement line.
Correct.
If you could make the edge of that easement line, those points, 10 feet from the edge of the existing driveway, then you'd be in compliance with an adjusted
We
lot
can do
line.
that easily.
With an
Okay.
adjusted lot line.
Well, the problem is, we tried to kind of in the first, we tried to accommodate that, and we were told we needed to have X number of acres, and I don't remember what it was, because we're keeping it at a residential use, and we had to comply with the residential minimum area.
Well, why don't you look at that and talk, to find out about it?
Well, I would love to be able to just make that easement 10 foot wider. That would be easy to do.
All you gotta do is find the two closest points of your driveway, where it's 10 feet from the driveway to where those 2 points would be.
We don't have any square footage to spare in terms of
They
a
can't
boundary
reduce
line
the
adjustment, but we have unlimited ability to increase the easement size. So,
Well, an easement is something that these people get when if you ever sold the house, and you don't live there anymore. These people have now there's an easement attached to the property. I would prefer not to attach an easement to the property.
I prefer that too, but I'd have to go to the ZBA to get, if I was told the right thing at the subdivision level, I'd have to go to the ZBA to make that lot any smaller than it is.
How big is the lot? The house lot?
Yeah, it doesn't, all,
Do you have data on what size the lot is, Earl?
I can't,
I do, but I'm not sure it's right in front of me.
2.359,
Well, that's
is
the,
that?
that's the one in the back. It had to be
It was 4.2 total, so 2.3, so it's just.
two, I guess.
So it's just it's just
Is
the
it
two?
right at 2 acres?
It's right at 2. We squeezed as much as we comfortably could.
And it's ag zoning?
No, it's commercial.
Oh, commercial, that's
In
right,
which
sorry.
commercial, it doesn't have that limitation. But we were told because as part of keeping this as residential, we had to adhere to the 2 acres.
Is there any other portion of the lot on this side that you could sacrifice with another adjustment where that little shed is? You said you have a footprint of a building that's not there anymore at the end of your,
Oh, he doesn't have.
right here, Earl,
He doesn't have enough.
right
Yeah.
there.
Well,
In that area.
I think it.
Can you sacrifice a little piece of that land and just do a lot line adjustment and make it a part of this
I mean, I'm
application?
using this for drainage.
Just think about that. Oh, you're using,
I like your idea, for sure.
He's talking about in front of the staging area, moving that line to make up for what you lose on the other side.
right there in that
Yeah,
corner,
that's what he's
could
talking
you make a
about.
lot line adjustment there and
No.
steal a little of the back lot?
We'll go right into that infiltration trench if we shift that.
yeah, it's exactly 2 acres according to the GIS.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm trying to give you
I
a
like
way
what
out.
you're trying to do,
That
and
little,
believe me.
that little easement is like, it's just a flat spot of, right now it's wood chip.
No,
And then there's the giant leach field from the existing property.
I see that there.
So you can't,
The slope is right there, I see it.
yeah, there really isn't, or else I have to cut like a ton of trees on the other side, which I'm trying to keep, because it kind
Alright,
of gives
well-
that aesthetics to that property is just, I mean,
So
they're
how come
massive trees.
So how come the driveway got built across the other lot in the first place then there, sir?
Because of the trees and the slope of the driveway where, I would have had, the trees that are existing, they're like this big at the base. We'd have to cut them down.
I don't mean to be rude, but this is like doing something and asking for forgiveness thing, situation, where you could have kept your driveway on your own land and made it around that iron rod
But there's
way
a
back
reason
when.
why we didn't, because we were going more with what the natural and keeping the environment as sound as possible. I think he had sound
I
logic.
mean, those trees are probably
and-
200 years old. The property's built in 1877. That house has been there before anything was commercial.
Okay.
And I'm trying to like cater to the natural property of, I mean, it's, you guys have
I
been here
think
long night, it's beautiful.
I-
It's beautiful. I don't want to take it, you don't have to.
As just one person, if you requested a waiver for the driveway to be within 10 feet of that property line, and the reasoning was because
But they can't do that.
why can't they do that?
Because right now, it's, with the easement, you mean?
Well, the issue is that our regulation says you can't have the driveway has to be at least 10 feet from the
But they
property.
they can't take that piece away in a lot line adjustment, because then this will be a non-conforming lot.
Well, no, so what I'm saying is that if he asks for relief from us, from that requirement to the regulation that Scott pointed out, I would be okay with waiving that and allowing that driveway to be
With an easement.
within the easement and within 10 feet of the
Yeah,
property
okay.
line, it
All
doesn't
right.
meet the regulations, just as one person, for the reason being that it's preserving the trees, preserving the buffer, which, leading to our landscaping question, is that the landscaping, you're allowed to use existing vegetation to make up for the required landscaping on the lot. I'd be okay with if you could just provide, and again, I'm one person, if you provided just some documentation that the existing vegetation that you're preserving and keeping satisfies those minimum standards for landscaping and the regulations, I would consider that waiver.
We have to be careful about doing that with landscaping because we have some pretty strict landscaping requirements and everybody wants to use their trees against their landscaping
Yeah, well,
requirements.
we
It happens
allow-
all the time.
We allow them to, the regulation allows them to do that, I would just want to see documentation of that. So we're
Okay.
not just going to take your word for it that, but give us some documentation on that.
All right, any more questions for the applicant before I open the public hearing? Okay, could you fellows roll out of the way? This gentleman, you want to speak? Nothing to say? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing.
I have something on the landscaping.
No one's here to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. Please. Oh, I'm taking care of one thing at a time.
Pointing something out,
What?
I was just pointing something out.
I heard Joanne wants to speak, and I'm trying to take care of the public hearing first.
Who closed it?
Thank you, Phil. Joanne?
So it looks like they would need, according to our development regulations, they would need 20 trees and 40 shrubs on the site.
Right.
So in lieu of what's already there, that's what they would like to do versus to add 20 trees and 40 shrubs.
So do a calculation and show us that you
They would
meet
have
that,
them?
that you have them.
Well, and you are, he's already said he,
We preserve them.
you.
Yeah, there's no
Well, you're looking to plant
location,
some.
right? Like of where they need to be? You guys are specifying that, or?
Correct.
Just
Got to be on
show
the
us.
landscaping plan.
Okay.
Earl knows what they are.
There is, but I don't think it would apply to your site because, it says things like if there's an area where nothing is planted, they want you to have the plants like that. But that would be in the way of what you're doing, so it's sort of a little bit different than most sites.
20 trees and, was that something I put on, or is that was what the regulation says?
That's what the regulations
It was,
say.
how many shrubs?
40.
And that is what, Joanne, in lieu of what?
In lieu of the existing trees that are there.
So you're saying,
No, the trees existing would be in lieu of what she's saying.
Right. That's what I meant, yeah.
so you're saying they don't have to do it if they can provide documentation?
Right, if they could provide maybe photos
You can
even to
provide
show
anything,
like
sure.
what it looks like would be
Like,
helpful.
one of the trees you're leaving is worth 20 of the ones we're
Yeah.
asking to plant.
We're opening Pandora's box. Okay. Is this going to get continued, Joanne, by your recommendation?
Yeah, so on the report, I had put the wrong date just because there wouldn't be enough time to submit and review. So I just
you
wanted
screwed
to
that one.
change that date to the June 12th. which
Well, I had a
is-
question because it was before the Conservation Commission, so.
Right, and they also have to meet with conservation on May 28th, so we need
So
those
what's your
comments.
recommended date, Joanne?
June 12th.
Is there that much to be done?
I mean, I've already done most of Scott's comments, but
But if we heard it before the 12th, we wouldn't have Conscom's comments.
Oh, the
Still
12th is our
have to
first
wait,
meeting after the
yeah.
Conservation Commission.
no, they're after that. They're the 28th. I think.
28th.
They're
of May.
5/28.
They're 5/28.
They're 5/28,
6/12
so-
would be us.
Oh, 6/12.
6/12 for us.
Ah, okay.
So
Yeah, I
the
said it was
meeting,
late.
the next,
still
our
late.
next meeting is the 22nd,
Right.
so we wouldn't have the
All right.
conservation's comments.
So you're recommending we continue this to what, 6 what?
12.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this application to June 12th.
Second.
Who did? Phil? I can't tell you guys are part of the, you sound the same.
Oh, do we? Okay.
So,
Phil will talk a lot too.
before we act on the motion, Earl, did you say you had what you needed at this point, or do you have anything else you're requesting clarification on?
I'll be coming back with waivers as it's been kind of floated here for the 10-foot, for the,
And then you still have an easement you want to put on this property for the driveway, leaving the bounds the way they are?
I already have the easement. It's recorded, it's processed, it's all
Okay.
in
I
force.
apologize. I thought this was part of our application tonight. So you were seeking an easement across the corner of that.
No.
No, yeah, we already,
You have that.
Have it.
My fault for not understanding that.
Book and page and everything.
Fine. All right, so a waiver for the 10-foot. And that's it? And then what was the other waiver you're asking?
We'll have to do a study on the landscaping, see if we could justify a waiver or, what? No. Waiver, I guess. So-
It's not very, before I get onto that,
So he needs a
can I
waiver for the
just
driveway
ask
and for the...
that we get a copy of that easement
Landscaping
document?
might not.
Oh, sure.
But the driveway, driveway center?
It's right off, no, I would just pull it right off.
So the landscaping, you'll coordinate with Joanne if a waiver is needed for the landscaping or not, once you've done your review of what's existing on site.
Are you going to respond to Earl and Mike, are you going to respond to the fire department's hazard classification and contents for the storage of the building? You're going to have to follow up on that.
Yes.
Did they have any comments on the fuel storage?
Apparently not. Maybe they didn't see it. Okay.
those fuel cells, they come regularly. Like you can't, I bought it from a fuel source that,
So we just need the specs.
yeah.
We want to know about spill control.
Yeah, it's all self-contained.
Well, I'm just saying, as long as you document all that,
Yep.
and
It's on the side of the container, I'll get it for you. for
you're
sure.
probably going to want to tell us if you have a spill containment, can there with speedy dry and all other stuff, and just make it a complete statement, so it's all on the record.
Copy that.
Anything else, folks? Okay, Colleen made a motion to continue this to 6:12, seconded by Phil. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Joanne, we aired and did not continue Aroma Joe's.
I was just thinking about that.
That's when you said about the continuation, I looked back at my notes, and we never made a continuation for Aroma Joe.
We didn't ask the gentleman in the audience if he wanted to comment either.
I did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, he said he did.
Everybody's getting delirious. Do we need to make a motion to?
Not
How do I
yet.
get a seat on the board? Possible?
You can
I would
be,
love to, like-
We
you
have an
can,
alternate.
once you get your application adjudicated, you can apply to be an alternate if you want.
Yeah, all right.
You gotta see Joanne about that.
I'll see Joanne about that.
Yeah, we do have a spot open.
Yeah.
But you can't help yourself by voting for your own project.
Shucks.
So should I do it after or before?
After you finish this
After the
project, then come on in.
All right.
So what was your recommendation for Aroma Joe's, Joanne?
It was to continue
To when?
12.
I wrote 12 June when.
June
All right, can I have I'm gonna write a motion here.
I thought, wait, let me check my notes, because I thought you,
I did not do one.
We can all meet. Yes.
sure?
Good night.
So do I need to make a motion?
We're not done yet.
Just gonna check my notes.
So when do you wanna do the Aroma Joe's, to June the 12th?
June the 12th.
Yeah, it was in our papers previous. I'd like to make a motion to continue the Aroma Joe's application to June 12th.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Joanne, will you please notify Mr. Merritt that they can continue to the 12th?
Sure.
And we erred by not giving them the date before they left.
It is in the report that he got, so he wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, does anybody want to serve as a member at large on CIP?
Didn't we appoint two? We appointed both Jim Raymond and Brad
We
Parkhurst.
have planning board members
From planning
can also be on there. We have extra.
Tim, I think, is the only planning board member. I think you're the only planning board
Right.
member.
And you're still listed as vice chair. You still want to be vice chair?
Of this?
CIP.
of CIP, I cannot.
Okay,
I
well,
don't
then
have to
you're
be
not
able
vice
this
chair.
summer to.
Then I'll ask Jim Raymond to be vice chair because he is a former
Yeah.
Yeah.
planning board member. Okay, request for a recommendation to the select board regarding granting an Eversource a 20-foot easement crossing the rail trail. Map 5,
So-
off Mass Road, proposed nearby project.
Before everybody really gets into this, it's not with poles on the rail trail or anything. It's just the wire that goes above, crosses the rail trail in the air.
Yeah.
So,
So let's ask our rail trail official over here, do you approve of it?
It is not obstructing the passage of trail users,
So do the board members consent with David,
I don't know, where's this at?
confer with David?
This is a power line going towards Mr. Hawk's trailer facility
How does
that's
his
under
easement
construction.
not cover that? Are they going in a
I-
different spot?
Overhead
Thank you.
service. This is overhead service for a building, that's all it is.
I believe the power lines are shown on the plans we approved, so.
Right, do
And
we
does
want to make
water
a,
and sewer go through the easement? Like, why is this?
do we want to make a recommendation to the selectmen regarding this?
So my only, it doesn't, I mean, the right easement to lay, install, construct, reconstruct, operate, maintain, it says above ground lines, which may consist of wires, markers, poles, cross arms, braces. So with this wording, I mean, I know that right now, it's just above head lines, but the way that this is worded with their standard language, they could put poles or do other, so that's, I'm not an attorney, I won't play one on TV, I don't know if that would be a
What if
concern.
they did it underground?
Yeah.
That's worse,
I mean,
No.
because you have the sewer line there.
Sewer line,
That's
yeah.
right.
So, I mean, obviously, we need power lines, we need to have the right of power and access. I don't know if it's correct to say that this is just for those existing above-ground lines and just let those pass. If someone's smarter than me.
I'm sure that the
wants
lines
to look at
go
that.
over the rail trail in other places in town.
Yeah, I just,
So,
with
Let's
this
just
language.
say, okay.
Barbara, you've seen legal language, what do you think?
The reality is,
They're gonna do what they need to.
they're gonna do what they
anyways.
need to do. They're not gonna put anything on the rail trail in the future, they're
Yeah.
just not. So, and they're doing this, so they're taking care of, they're using their standard easement deed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't,
The only thing you could do is put in there that it's for residential service.
Commercial service.
it's not.
Oh, that's right,
yeah,
Hawks.
it's for hops.
Okay,
I don't have an issue with it. Motion to recommend approval.
Second.
motion to recommend approval to the Board of Selectmen. All those, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Joanne, we have a document here from Caroline's Fine Food. What is this related to?
Yes, so I just wanted to bring this to you because I just received it today, and I thought we could just take care of it. So the old Shaking Crab building was purchased by Caroline's Fine Food, and she is in there. She's been renovating the place. She has a business currently on 101 in Bedford, and she's renovating the place to open up here and close the other place and open up in Goffstown. So she had two questions. One doesn't concern you, it's about signage. But the other one was, would it be possible for us to offer outdoor seating for our customers? And I asked her for further details on what she means by this. It's basically what she sells are many different variations of pot pie. So she has all different flavors of pot pie. And some are fresh and some are frozen, and people would just go in and, pick out their pot pie and not really eat there. But she will have a limited menu for lunchtime traffic. And so she thought if she put 3 tables out front with patio umbrellas, and then some privacy plantings, which are shown on the next page, that at least on a nice day, someone would be able to sit out there and eat their lunch. So I included a photo,
I saw it.
and there is like a tarred area, asphalt area along the front before you get to the sidewalk.
Isn't that how you have to also get into the building?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I tried to do the whole building, but I had trouble with it. It wouldn't allow me to print the whole thing.
Well,
You're not gonna be able to get people by there if there's tables.
because you have a
Well,
curbing.
you've got a
There's
sidewalk.
sidewalk in
Yeah,
front of
there's a
it.
curbing
This
on the
sidewalk
backside of
goes
the
to the
sidewalk.
steps.
But I thought that the entry is like right there. as
It's
you're
in the
coming through.
center.
It's in the
of
center of the
building
building.
off the.
The only thing I'm concerned with is where's the property line? If this town right-of-way goes behind the back of that sidewalk and that's on town property,
Mass Roads
we cannot
documentation is
approve that.
terrible for
That's why I
where
thought
property lines are.
Scott would
We might
need
have it, but
to get involved with this to figure that out.
I would say if it's on their property and they can document it on a plot plan, I wouldn't have any problem with them putting tables on their property. But
Okay.
they can't do it on town property.
I would think they would need to maintain an accessible access from
Yeah.
the parking lot.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm concerned
Well,
about.
the
because-
door is here and then there's other space on the other side of the door. I had a problem printing it. I mean, I could see it on the screen, but it wouldn't print the entire building,
So I
so,
think there's more homework to do before you can give them an answer, Joanne.
okay.
Yeah, they should submit the sketch you asked
Right.
for and show, even if it's based off the GIS, show where they're putting the tables and see
least
if there's
that's a
enough room,
starting
because
point.
looking at the aerial, it's tight.
Well, they don't have an accessible access. There's 3 steps to
There's,
get in.
yeah,
No,
there's
they
a,
don't
there's a
have
set of
any.
concrete steps in front of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it's an existing building.
Right, right.
They don't make them change it.
They can work it out with the town if the town.
So
plan
can
is involved.
staff just work on this and, do you want to see it back or?
Nothing like sitting
Yeah,
6
why
feet
don't you
from the
report
Mass
back
Road
to us on
traffic
what your
where you
findings
pop
are.
Yeah,
by.
no,
I know, I
tasteful
don't
seating
see
right
it
on.
really
Why don't you
going
report back to
anywhere
us on what
anyways.
your findings are?
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we go home, I know it's late, Joanne and I went to the Bedford Planning Board meeting last Monday night, and I can't believe that because they had some new members, they allowed Nick Golan to make a 2-hour presentation of the entire project all over again.
We appreciate
If
your
I had my pistol,
sacrifice.
if I had my pistol, I would have shot Nick on public TV. No, I didn't really mean that, I like Nick. But the point was, it was suffocating to sit through that presentation for 2 hours. At 8, we started at 6:30, and at 8:20, they opened public comment.
Oh, my God.
And that's when the attorney from the Algers spoke first, and then I spoke after the attorney for the Algers. And pretty much, they must have listened, and I told them, thank you for listening, because as Nick went through his proposal, he used all of the headers for the 6 bullet points that we had for regional impact. Stormwater, acoustical, photometrics, field use, PF, AS, and traffic. And he pretty much covered all of it before I even spoke. And they had worked out a lot of stuff with the neighbors, the decibel thing they've worked out, the lighting, they're working that out, the field use and scheduling. They pretty much covered it. The only thing they missed out on PFAS is that they were only talking about testing the soil before the project starts and testing the fields after it's done. And I suggested they test the material they haul in because that's a huge import for that project. And you don't know where people are going to get fill from. And, so the one of the members on the board really perked up when I said that because that member was asking Nick how much fill was going in and he says, oh, I really don't know. Well, we talked about it here. And then the traffic, I unloaded on the Bedford board politely and told them that I thought it was, I'll just say, I think it's unfair to the town of Goffstown that a proposed development in Bedford that has site access via Bedford town roads should be denied by the Bedford public officials. If this is going to be built in Bedford, then Bedford and its residents should at least share in the traffic impact. A recommendation is to have the college security open the gate on Runlet Hill for events and close to through traffic when the event is concluded, maintaining the current conditions to limit traffic through the campus. But they all just said
They
it.
continued the hearing
They just said it.
June.
So I left because I was late and I have to get up at 4:30, and Joanne stayed, and they said that they were going to include comments that I asked for on the stormwater, the monitoring and reporting requirements to both Bedford and Goffstown DPW town engineers, recommending annual written reports to be submitted, and the PFAS testing, recommending biannual testing and reporting to the Bedford and Goffstown town engineers.
So then
They're not
after,
including the traffic?
They made no comment about the traffic.
no. Then I talked to the attorney afterwards for the woman who's the Goffstown abutter,
Mrs. Alders.
Algers. And he was, I said, when I came out, I said, you know, they were, the board and the planner were talking about possibly doing a development agreement, because the last time they ran into trouble with Goffstown with the lighting for the football field, and she wound up suing this town, there wasn't anything they could do as far as enforcement went, because it wound up going to court, and there was an agreement, but it was only between the applicant and Mrs. Algers. So the town wasn't involved, so there was no enforcement that could be done. So a development agreement could be made between both towns and the Algers, so that everything is included as to what's expected. And then if there is any sort of lack of doing what they're supposed to be doing, there could be enforcement imposed.
Okay.
And I got my hand on the traffic intersection memorandum from Manchester saying that the intersection at St. A's Drive and Rockland Avenue needs to be changed to a four-way stop because it's so dangerous. And that was, and I opened my traffic statement with the discussion revolving around the fact that the traffic generated by this new facility be routed through Goffstown. This concern is supported by the Manchester Public Works memorandum dated March 25th of 2025, that it's a failed intersection and that more traffic is going to make it worse. I also found out via their comments and the board's comments, none of the construction traffic will travel through Bedford. The entire
So
project,
all the loads of fill are.
every zillion yards of fill that's coming in there is coming through your roads. So maybe,
Why can't we stop that?
Well,
Because St. A's those are private.
you did approve when they came in for the hearing on entering through Goffstown.
only to put the sewer and water. We did not give them construction access
No, you
approval. We gave them permission to extend their sewer and water lines through Goffstown.
But also to have that the main entrance into that site.
No, we didn't. We said they could have their sewer and water. We never said that we could approve the entrance of that site.
It was included in the request.
Well, then I guess I missed it because I wouldn't have voted for that.
Can you check that? Because, I mean, it really is ridiculous. They're preserving, you know, their side of the bunker there, so to speak, and we've got it, and the maintenance and all the chaos that's going to result is, because it's going to be huge wear and tear on that road.
Oh, actually, Scott, when I worked for the town of Ware, we had a logging project in Francistown that was coming through Ware. And prior to giving permission to use the Ware roads, we made them photograph all the roads, video the roads for damage prior to the project starting. And we had a video recording of the roads after the project was done. And when we found the damage, we were able to assess the logger for the damage to the town of Ware's roads, because we had video evidence of it prior to starting the project. So that's something we could discuss with them.
You know that back lot at St. A's? When they have an event there and that lot gets full, that's right there by the barriers
Yeah.
for Bedford, everybody has to remain in that lot until all the other traffic is gone for them to leave. Because they have to go through Goffstown. And there's an entrance right there
So-
that could be opened up.
I was there for like 8th grade graduation last year. They did open that rear lot. They were sending people down.
They will.
So they do open it on occasion. I just don't know.
If it's an
what
event or
lines.
something like that, they will open it.
Yeah, so
Well, it fell on deaf ears, my
it's too bad.
heated statement. I was polite, but I was firm.
It might be whose event it is. If it's a
Yeah.
Bedford event,
No, because they've done it for graduations as well.
Well, I've been at graduations and we've been stuck in that back lot.
No, they open up the back lot.
I think we should sue them when it's all over.
I think Phil should make a motion.
No, they open up the back lot, but you had to wait for all the
Where
other
is the copy of the
traffic to get
development
out.
regs I was gonna
Yeah, we were
get?
stuck in traffic.
Where are we gonna get a copy of the development regs?
I think I'd like to
Yes,
close the
but I
meeting.
said at the next meeting, because we have to
Colleen
copy
just-
the
Motion
motion.
to
Yeah.
adjourn?
I thought
Could
we
I have a
were
motion,
this
Phil?
meeting.
And I don't know
Second.
Who seconded
when
it?
you want to review.
All right,
them.
all those in favor say aye.
I don't know, maybe we sound the same.
Abstention. Thank you, GTD. We are adjourned.
I just want to say something. The